please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and this would be followed by a moment of silence for Supervisor David Fry. In his memory, he passed away recently.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I believe we have Commissioners Jamie Robinson and David Albritton joining us by Zoom this morning. Can we confirm they're both on?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Do I have a motion
Dave.
to allow Commissioners Robinson and Albritton to join the meeting by Zoom?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I want to thank everyone who has joined us here at our meeting this morning. I know that the main topic of discussion today will be on implementing a fare on our Sunrunner Rapid Transit service. I want to thank Sheriff Galtieri for your service and for joining us here today to be part of this discussion. I'd also like to thank Councilwoman Kathleen Beckman from the City of Clearwater and the Chair of the Homeless Leadership Alliance and the HLA's Executive Director, Dr. Monica Elsnick. Thanks also to Alex Ray, St. Pete Beach's City Manager. In order to organize our discussion this morning and to be as efficient as possible with everyone's time, we're going to structure our discussion as follows. First, key leaders will be asked to speak first and to keep their presentations succinct. Sheriff Galtieri, then the Homeless Leadership Alliance, and then the City of St. Pete Beach. After those remarks, there will be a presentation regarding the Sunrunner and fare implementation given by PSTA staff. Once that presentation is finished, we will have public comment. If you have not already filled out one of these green cards and you would like to participate in public comment, they are ready for you to fill out and submit to the table here. If you could please do so, and then those will be called in the order in which they were received. After public comment, the board will have its discussion, and then hopefully we will then have a decision on how the PSTA board will move forward. My last comment for now is that I would like to thank Commissioner Renee Flowers for asking for this discussion today during a recent committee meeting. Brad Miller, CEO of PSTA, would you like to add anything before I introduce Sheriff Galtieri?
Yes. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, everyone, for coming. As I stated at the last PSTA board meeting, I am very much hoping that we can find a solution to the issues raised by the citizens of St. Pete Beach while keeping the Sunrunner service successful as it has been. The proposed fare pilot the PSA previously planned to start this past Monday was not implemented, but it was an attempt at trying to quickly implement a partial solution. Following last week's PSA's committee meetings and discussions with the City of St. Petersburg, as you know, we did not implement the pilot, so we could have this discussion here today. Thank you very much, Sheriff Galtieri, for working with me and my staff over the past 4 weeks on this issue. I do also want to thank April Lott and her team at Directions for Living for partnering with PSTA on assisting those experiencing homelessness. And as always, our staff and I will implement whatever decision, whatever plan that the PSA board decides on today. So I'm grateful for that.
All right, thank you. Sheriff Galtieri, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here this morning. I think it's important to try and move this keyboard in so I don't knock it off. Against this backdrop of where I have been on the homelessness issue, because this isn't about homelessness. This is about a quality of life and a public safety issue that has been displaced from downtown St. Petersburg to St. Petersburg Beach. And on the homelessness issue itself, I've been actively involved for the last 15 years in finding real solutions to the chronic and unsheltered homelessness population problem in Pinellas County. There is no other law enforcement agency and no other law enforcement agency head in this country that has made the effort that I have or we have to find solutions to this problem. I challenge anyone to find another law enforcement agency in this country that is the largest provider of homeless services in its community. We opened Pinellas Safe Harbor in 2011 because there was a real problem. We had overcrowding at the jail, and it was largely due to the criminalization of homelessness and people who were being arrested when they shouldn't have been because they were homeless. And so we wanted to do the right thing by the people, and we wanted to solve the overcrowding at the jail. Pinellas Safe Harbor has been very successful. The capacity there when we opened it was about 425, and it stayed there for years. The capacity today is still the same, but the utilization is only about 50% of what capacity is. So this isn't a services issue. This isn't an availability of services issue. The people we're going to talk about today and the problem that it's causing is of the chronic homeless. And this is a hard thing for people to understand, is that within this population, if you worked within this population, as I have and many others have for a long time, there are certain components of this chronic homeless population that like their lifestyle. They want to live on the street. They don't want to go to Safe Harbor. Safe Harbor has a roof over their head, meals, showers, bathroom facilities, medical services, social services, job training, all of the above. And we'd be more than willing to open our doors even wider to bring them. They don't want to come. So this isn't about that. This isn't about services. This is about a problem that has been displaced because people found out that they could ride for free from downtown St. Petersburg to St. Petersburg Beach. So what happened in November when you all implemented the Sunrunner and didn't charge a fare? Nothing really. We didn't start seeing an impact of this until about March. And one of the things, before I forget, I do want to mention this to you because I got this question from a number of you and from others, is that, and I've said this, that it's a displaced problem. And one of the questions that came up is this caused by more homelessness and more chronic homeless and more unsheltered homeless in Pinellas County? And it's not. I can tell you, and maybe the Homeless Leadership Alliance people will speak to this, but the chronic homeless population, the unsheltered homeless population in Pinellas County is down significantly. Just to give you a couple of numbers, in 2018, based upon the point in time count, there were 417 chronic homeless adults in Pinellas County. In 2023, it's 204. So the percentage, overall percentage of chronic homeless in 2018 was 19%. In 2023, it's 12%. And the unsheltered homeless in 2018 was 965. In 2023, it's 646. So what we're seeing with this is not because there's more homeless. In fact, the efforts in Pinellas County have been successful in reducing homelessness. It's a good thing in chronic homeless and unsheltered homeless. This again goes back to just this discrete population that doesn't want services. And so what happened around March is we started getting a lot of complaints from the residents in St. Petersburg Beach, in St. Pete Beach. And it was that they were going to the Dolphin Village Shopping Center and they were being accosted, they were being hit up, they were being harassed. We started getting complaints about people sleeping on the beach. We're getting complaints from families. And this is not okay, is that as you're walking down the beach access and there are showers there where you can rinse off your feet when you come off the sand, that there's people there naked, urinating and defecating when they're trying to take their kids out and off the beach. That's not okay. So it was a huge quality of life issue, huge public safety issue, and it increased and it increased and it increased. And it continued to get worse and worse and worse because what happened is within that community, word spread that they could, instead of sleeping in downtown St. Pete on the sidewalks, sleeping in Williams Park, sleeping and hanging where they do, they could take the Sunrunner out to St. Pete Beach, and that they could sleep on the sand, hang out underneath the stars, and not have to sleep in downtown. And it was also a new environment for them, where they had people, and this is another problem, a chronic problem with the chronic homelessness, is the enablers. Is that people mean well. They're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to be compassionate, but they're actually making the problem worse by feeding these people and giving them food and giving them water and giving them money where they walk into the liquor store and they buy alcohol. And this is a notorious problem. And Chair Driscoll, you're aware of it, or Commissioner Flowers is aware of it with St. Pete, where we've had problems, and Clearwater's aware of it, where we have the street feeding, et cetera. And people mean well, but it actually exacerbates the problem. And so you got new people who see this, so you got some people that are adversely affected by it, and some people who are adversely affected because they feel that they got to do something, but they're doing the wrong thing. So word got out, and they kept going out there, and more got out there. So about a month ago, I talked to Mr. Miller and said, we got a problem. And this is getting worse and worse and worse, and we've got to do something about this. So at that time, they implemented a detail with deputies out there, and it's costing us, and this is not the answer. Because what we do and how we solve problems, the only way I have to solve these problems with this group is with enforcement. And that's back to criminalizing homelessness, and that's not right, that's not good, that doesn't solve anything. Because it can't get them to go to Safe Harbor. You can't get them to go to any of the other service providers that are out there that are available because they don't want to go. So the only thing we can do to deal with this is with enforcement. And so we put the detail out there, and it's costing us $10,000 a week. $10,000 a week in deputies to push this problem back. And so during this period of time, since July 25th, we've made 52 arrests, issued 132 trespass warnings, done 90 field interview reports, and issued 32 ordinance violations. Now, some people have said that crime is up. Crime's not up. St. Pete Beach overall is a safe place. This is social crime. This is crime related to this chronic homeless population. And it is, in some cases, thefts, it's trespass, it's disorderly conduct for urinating in public, defecating in public, being drunk, all those things. That's social crime. This isn't murders and robberies and rapes. Are some things up? The only thing that's up is theft. And in that same period of time of July of 22 to March of 23 is our calls for service in the Dolphin Village Shopping Center, which is right across from the county park, which is right across from the main Sunrunner drop-off. Our calls for service in that shopping center are up 535%. 535%. At the access to the beach, our calls for service are up 384%. And at the 7-Eleven on Gulf Boulevard, which is where they hang out and go in, and also where they're stealing from, is that our calls for service are up 70%. As I said, the only crime increase is theft, and theft is up 110% in that same period of time, from 48 in 2022 to 101 in 2023. And 19 of the 101 thefts are retail thefts, and they're basically all from the Publix and the 7-Eleven. So it goes back to this population that's out there. And it didn't start until the word got out that they could, for free, hop on the Sunrunner, go out there. It is against the law in St. Pete Beach to sleep on the beach. It's against the law to have open containers of alcohol on the beach or not. It's not okay to be harassing people as they're going to and from shopping. It's not okay to be urinating in public. It's not okay to be defecating in public. It's not okay to be naked taking showers. It's not okay to pass out and live on the street out there. And so you can see what's happening. This is not okay. Get this right here. Get my sign there. It's not okay to go to Publix and see that in the parking lot. It's not okay. Not okay to be sleeping in the parking lot with all your stuff passed out there. It's not okay when people come up to you and say, hey, can we help you to do this?
Is there any way to put those on a screen? Because we can't even see those.
We could pass them around.
It's not okay to park all of your belongings out on the street. It's not okay if you're a family and you're walking into one of the restrooms out there for the beach access, to go in there and find some guy passed out next to the toilet in the bathroom. This isn't okay. To just think you're going to sleep out there for the tourists that come by and see this. And we get complaints from the tourists too. St. Pete Beach is a tourism-driven economy. Pinellas County is a tourism-driven economy. This is not good. This isn't, and if this was, doesn't matter whether it's St. Pete Beach, it doesn't matter whether it's Dunedin, doesn't matter whether it's Clearwater, doesn't matter whether it's Oldsmar, doesn't matter whether it's Safety Harbor, doesn't matter where it is. If this was happening in any of those communities, the same people would be calling, and you all would be calling me saying, do something about this. The people who own these cabanas out there on the beach, they don't want these people sleeping in their cabanas. That's not what they're there for. And then again, it's illegal to sleep on the beach on St. Pete Beach. This is a very real problem. It needs a very real solution. If there was some other solution other than implementing the fair, I'm all about it. But I can't come up with one. Because these people, this isn't about the call teams that St. Pete has and social services and counselors. And quite honestly, Mr. Miller tried, but it's made the problem worse with these allied security people out there that you all put out there. It's making the problem worse. Because now, when they show up at the bus stop out there, is the allied security people are there and they all disperse. We got to chase them around now as opposed to them all being in one place. I was out there Monday myself. And I was standing in the Dolphin Village Shopping Center. And I was talking to a couple of the deputies. And this woman came up in her car, and she had this absolutely freaked out, scared look on her face. And we walked up to her. She was doing this, come here, come here. And I walked over to her, and she said, you got to do something about this. That guy over there, he's harassing me as I'm trying to put my groceries in the car. I'm scared. You got to do something about this out here. And it was one of these people that got off the Sunrun. People shouldn't live like this. Y'all have to do something about it. We have to do something about it. And right down the road, there's 250 beds available, but they won't go. They don't want the help. They don't want, it's the usual thing we face. It's a small number of people that are causing a major problem. And this isn't about homelessness. This isn't about the people that need and want services. These aren't the people that are in shelters. These aren't the people that want the help to break the cycle of homelessness. All those things that we're all doing very well. This is about a discrete group of people that's causing a major problem in this community, and we got to solve it. If anybody has any questions, I don't know if you want to do questions or how you're going to do it, Chairman, but I'm happy to answer any, but that's the situation as I see it.
Thank you so much. What I'd like to do is have each person that I named earlier give their presentation, and then we can have everyone available for questions. So if you don't mind sticking around.
Absolutely. More than happy to. Do you want me to leave these?
If you could hand them, folks, I appreciate your interest in the topic and your enthusiasm for finding solutions, but we do need to respect the rules of decorum during the board meeting. So if you could please hold your applause, I'd certainly appreciate it. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Alex Ray, City Manager of St. Pete Beach. I'm here on behalf of the city. And thank you for taking the time to listen to this issue today. Sheriff made a great case for really what's going on St. Pete Beach. And I'm here to tell you that our residents feel it. Our tourists feel it. Our hotels are basically coming back and saying that the tourists are coming out and complaining. They like to walk on the area of St. Pete Beach, and they feeling pressure from interacting with some of these people that are very aggressive when they're coming and asking for donations, contributions, and the like. So it is impacting the quality of life in St. Pete Beach. It is impacting the tourism in St. Pete Beach. St. Pete Beach is the second largest contributor to tourist taxes in the county. And we're very proud of that, and we'd like to offer a good product to the residents and good quality of life to the tourists that come to visit us every day. I think this is a lot of unintended consequences. I think that the PSTA bringing in a new product and offering that product for free at the beginning for people to try it out, it's a good idea. You know, a lot of businesses will do that. A lot of businesses will say, yeah, come and get introduced to the product. But that decision, which was a good decision at one point in time, needs to change because that introductory period has happened. A lot of people have used the system, but it is now being counterproductive and it has unintended consequences. We have residents who feel that they don't want to use the service anymore because they don't feel comfortable in the buses. And, well, I know that one of the solutions was putting some security on the buses. Well, that's not sustainable either. You know, you can't have a police officer, a security guard at every stop, on every bus. That is just not going to work. So it really is important that by having a fair system, you know, put in place, we can make the system really be the right system for the transit-dependent workforce, where they can feel comfortable in the bus as well as when they get at the bus stop, as well as when they get in the areas around the bus stops. Yes, it was a good idea, but the ideas sometimes had to evolve, and I think the time to get back to having a fair system is now. The city is willing to work with the PSTA. I already spoke to some of the hotel operators because we don't want to have other unintended consequences. We like the fact that a lot of the workers to the hotels are using the PSTA, and we have a model that we can replicate. The Tradewinds already works with PSTA and has passes for all of their employees to be able to use the PSTA for free. And I think by talking to the other 20 hotel operators that we have in the city, talking to all the large businesses that we have over there, we really should work hard, hand in hand with the PSTA, and enhance that program. Provide a system in where, you know, daily passes can be sold to the tourists so they can easily access the PSTA. We want to make the using of the PSTA system as seamless and as easy as possible. But the current system that, as it exists today, is not working. And I'm not going to kind of repeat all of the photos that the sheriff had, because he is the expert on crime. I heard a lot of different people having different crime statistics here and there and everything else, and I keep telling them these are the guys who know the job, and we really need to listen to them when it comes to crime, because while there might not be homicide, it is impacting the quality of life of people. People need to feel safe, and they need to be able to feel that they can go around their business without being harassed and impacted. And the city is willing to, like I say, we'll work with PSTA. I had a call with Brad a couple of days ago, and I offered our help to see how we can make this work going forward. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker would be a representative from the Homeless Leadership Alliance.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Dr. Monica Lesnick. I'm the CEO of the Homeless Leadership Alliance of Pinellas County. The HLA serves as the lead agency for the Pinellas County Continuum of Care. The COC's mission is very clear. It is to provide leadership on planning, development, and an alignment of community advocacy, resources, and strategies to prevent, divert, and end homelessness in Pinellas County. As of today, we have 130 families on a shelter wait list. That is 130 families on a shelter wait list. I appreciate the opportunity to address this esteemed board this morning regarding this important matter of early fare increases on a very specific route. As a committed supporter of the PSTA, I believe it is crucial that we engage in thoughtful discussion about the potential impact of this decision that you're faced today on the most vulnerable citizens in our community. The PSTA plays a vital role in our community. You provide essential transportation services that bridge gaps and create opportunities for individuals from all walks of life. However, you all find yourselves today at a very serious crossroad. You're considering a decision that has far-reaching consequences. Consequences specifically for low-income individuals who rely on the Sunrunner. We must acknowledge the complexities of homelessness and the challenges faced by those who experience it. Data consistently reveals that low-income individuals are more likely to become homeless due to socioeconomic barriers. In light of this reality, targeting these individuals with fare increases on the Sunrunner raises serious concerns about discrimination. I concur with the sheriff. It is horrific that we have families and individuals sleeping outside of Publix. It is unacceptable in our community that this is what we have going on every single day. There are currently, according to the point-in-time count recently republished by our Continuum of Care, 646 unsheltered individuals that were on the street on a single point in time, which was January 26, 2023. There were 1,498 individuals residing in public shelters during that time, which means we had 2,144 unhoused individuals on a particular night. In addition, we had 3,768 school-aged children as reported by the Pinellas County School System. Our public beaches, boy, do I love our public beaches. That's why I left Arizona again to move back to our public beaches. They're a space we all cherish. They're intended to be a place of equality, of joy, of fishing, of watching birds. There are no signs on our beaches that I remember seeing that state you must own a home or be a renter to use our beach. Rather, is it a space for all members of our community that they should feel welcomed, regardless of where they reside. The request to increase early fares for the Sunrunner heading westbound toward the beaches from specific Sunrunner stops looks like an apparent aim at impacting homeless populations, raising ethical questions about the purpose of public transportation. Public transit should never be used as a tool to marginalize any group. If fare increases are needed, we get that. The economy is at a challenging time, but those should be universal, ensuring fairness and equity for all passengers, not just those traveling to the beach. Furthermore, if fare increases are implemented earlier than planned or advance of public hearings, we must also address critical issues in how we are going to outreach unhoused and low-income bus riders. Many individuals who rely on the Sunrunner, as previously stated, work and are essential to our economy in St. Pete Beach. Many of these are low-income workers. Increasing this fare may put an unnecessary reliability on their ability to get to their work, and it puts them at a risk of becoming homeless, which is the very issue we are trying to avoid. It is all of our responsibility to ensure that these individuals are aware of assistance programs that exist, allowing them to continue accessing transportation they need to maintain their livelihoods. As you deliberate this matter today, please consider the broader implications of this decision. It is our hope that your actions continue to reflect what we know is the PSTA's commitment to justice, compassion, and equal access to opportunity for all of us to enjoy our beautiful community. I know we all have a deep appreciation for the Sunrunner and the benefit it brings. It's imperative that we ensure these benefits are accessible for all members of our community and our visitors alike. In conclusion, I implore this board to think beyond, again, the immediate impact of an early fare increase. Consider the long-term effects on our community's most vulnerable residents. Let us uphold the values that have guided our organizations and this community for years. The values of fairness, of support for individual, By doing so, we can ensure the Sunrunner continues to be a source of empowerment and connection for all who enjoy it. Thank you for your time and consideration, and it is my firm belief that through our continued collaboration and through this open dialogue, it will result in strategies to not only enhance our public transportation, but for citizens, all citizens, housed and unhoused alike in Pinellas County. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Whitney Fox of PSTA to give a presentation on the Sunrunner service, what other transit systems might be doing right now that we could look at, and then also some proposed options for us to consider. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Board. Thank you for having me. My name is Whitney Fox. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing here at PSTA, and I'm happy to present to you some information that the staff has put together this morning regarding this issue. So we'll be providing updated facts about the Sunrunner service and a little background as to, of course, what brought us to this discussion today. And we'll be sharing research, like you mentioned, that we completed on what other public transit systems are doing to assist the unhoused. And finally, a few options that for your consideration for implementing fares on Sunrunner. But as Brad noted, the PSTA staff is committed to successfully implementing whatever the board agrees upon today. So first, let us begin with our Sunrunner successes. I hope we can all agree that by nearly every measure, the Sunrunner Bus Rapid Transit Service has been a resounding success. We actually expect to celebrate our 1 millionth rider before the end of the fiscal year, and we're averaging about 100,000 riders per month. The PSTA Planning Committee just heard, and I hope the full board will have the opportunity to hear the presentation on how we hoped and we see the Sunrunner is actually incentivizing transit-oriented development projects along the corridor. And most importantly, the convenience and speed of the Sunrunner has changed the perception of public transportation for thousands of riders and residents here in Pinellas County and what it can be. And I think we can all agree that we want to maintain the successful momentum that the Sunrunner has built. So let's talk a little bit about the background that brought us here today. The initial project for the Sunrunner included 6 months of free fares. On February 22nd, the board voted to extend the free fare period to 1 year. We've heard the public comments of perceived crime by the unhoused from residents of St. Pete Beach and, of course, the Pinellas County Sheriff. And, of course, we are sensitive to those issues and those concerns. The Pinellas County Sheriff has requested that a fare be implemented on board the Sunrunner as soon as possible to mitigate these concerns. On the other hand, the City of St. Petersburg has included funds in their proposed fiscal year 24 budget to buy down the Sunrunner fare and keep the route free for a longer period. It is our goal today to find a solution that works for all of the stakeholders involved in this very important decision. To ensure that PSTA, as a transportation agency, is doing everything that we can, we have researched what other transit agencies nationwide are doing to support the unhoused. And here's what we learned. Roughly 39% of transit agencies have an outreach program for the unhoused individual, or partner with community organizations, and this includes PSTA. Only 5% of transit agencies have budget allocated for issues related to homelessness. This also includes PSTA. And very few have a dedicated position for these outreach efforts, which are typically a part-time position. I also want to mention, of course, our existing efforts and what we do to support our citizens in need and getting people to where they need to go. PSTA is proud to offer the Transportation Disadvantaged Discounted Fare Program. It is a state-funded program providing affordable transportation to individuals who make less than 200% of the federal poverty limit. And many of our community partners offer free bus passes to those in need. For example, Pinellas County Health Department makes approximately 300 TD bus passes, $0 free for their clients. In addition, the City of St. Petersburg's fiscal year 2024 budget includes funds to make bus rides free for residents of St. Petersburg who meet TD income requirements. So again, they would ride for free on all of PSTA services. Per PSTA's fare policy, there are groups of certain people in need who receive a reduced fare of $1 $2.10. This includes seniors, the disabled, and anyone with a Medicare or a Medicaid card. And lastly, beginning November 10th, all veterans will ride free per the board's vote on May 24th board meeting. And of course, a sad reality in the United States is that at least 10% of unhoused individuals are veterans. We are proud to be partners with Directions for Living, a behavioral health and social services organization that conducts direct outreach to the unhoused at our Grand Central station and to connect them with resources that can help. And we're discussing actually to expand this outreach in fiscal year '24. And finally, this summer, the PSTA deployed staff and third-party private security, as mentioned earlier, to monitor safety along the Sunrunner route. So, with all of this in mind, let's talk about our fare collection options on the Sunrunner. I think before we begin, we have to talk about how the Sunrunner fare collection works. From inception, Sunrunner was designed to be a completely cashless system with no onboard cash box or ticket vending. And this is very different than all of our PSTA services, but it is a standard on all BRT systems, bus rapid transit systems, and like the Sunrunner, obviously, as it helps maintain efficiency when boarding, which is a key part of what makes it a rapid service. Once fares are implemented, enforcement is to be conducted by fare inspectors, and riders can pay their fares by using contactless payment, including tap-enabled credit or debit cards and digital wallets on smartphones or smartwatches, Flamingo Fares card or app, and any riders without smartphones or credit cards have Flamingo cards that can be reloaded with cash as needed at PSTA customer service centers. In November, a retail network will also become available for riders throughout the county to purchase Flamingo Fares media with cash. So let's talk about our option one and what has been currently planned. As previously mentioned, the current plan per the board's direction is to begin charging full fares of $2.25 on November 1st. Now, the pros to this option is PSTA is operationally on track to implement these fares on November 1. It aligns with all of our other service changes, which will go into effect on the same day. Thousands of riders have already been informed that this is when the fares will begin, and this gives riders adequate notice about their fare payment options, again, as I noted, as it will be different than the rest of our system. Cons to the solution is it does not respond to the request by the county sheriff and, of course, some public comments as quickly as they've asked. Now, one question that has come up is, can PSTA implement full fares before November 1st? The answer is yes, but there are numerous reasons why this may be challenging. Operational costs will be higher, of course, for a quicker implementation, and we have planned a very robust fare education campaign to educate riders on how to pay on board the Sunrunner without cash. And because this is so different from all other PSTA routes, to do this, we planned for 60 days for this education effort, which means we would begin that communication campaign and outreach on September 1st. This gives riders ample time to understand their fare payment options and make appropriate plans to begin fare payment. Our riders have come to trust PSTA to treat them with respect and keep them informed about changes to how they ride. And this is a key part to what makes us an award-winning transportation agency. By springing quick changes on our riders without adequate communication, we anticipate a more significant drop in both ridership and, of course, community sentiment. Also, the retail network, which will make fare media available to purchase with cash at CVS, AMSCOT, and other locations throughout the county, not just at customer service terminals, won't be operational until November 1st. Lastly, I think an additional question should be, should we implement a fare before November 1st? Is a fare going to solve this issue? As I previously stated, we have many partner programs that assist the unhoused with free bus passes. This is not an issue unique to Pinellas County. On an international level, research shows that urban public transit systems, both free and not free, are often seen as the cause of challenges with unhoused individuals. And the reality is this is a highly complex social issue that requires combined efforts from multiple stakeholders. Another fare option for your consideration, a possibility of a cashless fare pilot. One possibility that's been discussed is a cashless fare pilot before November 1st. The fare would be implemented on all stations. we recommend a 50-cent amount as it's already coded into our Sunrunner technology. Any other fare amount would require a minimum of 2 to 3 week lead time. And this pilot directly responds to the request of the sheriff in St. Pete Beach, but keeps Sunrunner the most affordable transportation option between St. Petersburg and the beaches. Now, make no mistake, implementing this pilot in the next 30 days will be bumpy. However, the 50-cent fare minimizes financial impact to riders in the short term, while fare collection and fare enforcement procedures are refined. Of course, giving less time to communicate fully to our customers will reduce ridership and overall positive sentiment, but this is the fastest option to implement a fare program on the Sunrunner. And last but not least, we would obviously need to mention that in the future, there is still the possibility for a fare buy-down from the city of St. Petersburg. A fare buy-down is a revenue contract that would keep the fare free to the rider. And yesterday, the city of St. Petersburg sent a letter affirming this commitment to free fares on Sunrunner beyond November 1st. And I believe this letter was included in your agenda packets. So to conclude, our options today are really two decisions for the board. Decision one, should we implement a fare pilot sooner than the planned November 1st date or not? Option two is what should we do on November 1st? Charge regular fares or consider a fare buy down from the city of St. Petersburg to keep the Sunrunner free to riders? Thank you very much for your time, and I'm here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll hear public comment. When I call your name, if you could please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. One thing I want to remind everyone is that there is a time limit, and we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to really express their opinion. The time goes by really fast, and so I would strongly suggest that with your comments that you make that the most important point first, so that if the time runs out, you made that point. I don't want you to have to sit down feeling like we missed out on hearing what you really meant to convey to us. So just consider that. We're going to have our first speaker, Doreen McKinnons. Good morning. The mic is adjustable, so it
Okay,
can be, yes, thank you.
I would just like to make the main point and bring you back to the main point, that the free fare is simply the St. Pete Council and mayor's method of moving low-level crime from their high-end apartments downtown and the condos to the beaches, to other communities. This is why they are so willing to help fund this. It's not right. You need to have them pay a fare. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. The next speaker is Thomas Sullivan.
Good morning. First, would like to congratulate PSTA on being first best in the nation in transit systems, hard work. I would just like to express appreciation for not only the Sunrunner, but for the PSTA system. The last time I drove anything other than an occasional golf cart was in 1974, having lived in New York City for decades and over in Asia for 10 years, 4 years in St. Pete. My sister lives on the Treasure Coast of Florida, and when I'm staying with her, there is no public transportation at all. Even though I could live cheaper with her, I'd spend a fortune on Lyft and Uber. But thankfully, I live right by the 22nd Street North Sunrunner stop. I use it every day, whether I'm going to Publix or to Walmart, weekends to a boozy brunch downtown at a hotel, or to get to Grand Central to catch the 18 bus to go to Bay Pines for my medical appointments. but I would like to say that I have never felt unsafe on the buses. I use them all the time, but in honesty, I can say that I haven't used it beyond 8 o'clock at night. But I've noticed that there is a problem, but I'm sure that with the resources available that we can come up to an equitable solution. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Liana Nunez.
Good morning. I represent a board of directors at one of the condominium complexes on St. Pete Beach. We are very close to the 7-Eleven referred to by Sheriff Galtieri, and it's bringing vandals, criminals, and trespassers to St. Pete Beach. He mentioned that his deputies are pushing back the problem. They're sitting at Dolphin Village across the street where the Sunrunner stops. Well, that pushback is being pushed back into the communities. Those pictures that he showed you, we have those happening at our condo complex. So they're coming into private property, which is trespassing, and that is a crime. That urination, defecation, people sleeping passed out in our laundry rooms, by our pool areas, on our chase lounges. We have 282 homeowners. It's our responsibility to protect them and to try and mitigate these types of liabilities. So if they're pushing them back into St. Pete Beach, it's coming into the neighborhoods. It's proving to be unsafe, not just for the homeowners, but also for riders and also for the bus drivers, if this continues. That's a huge liability. If you want hotel guests to keep using it, the concierges at the Tradewinds and the Serratas, they want to recommend it. They're going to stop recommending it if tourists get on there and they get accosted and they get harassed. Ridership eventually, if this continues, will be down, and the only people who will be riding it will be the element that we're trying to protect our communities from. I think that's about it, but it goes beyond just the beaches for people not being able to sleep on the beach, because if they can't sleep on the beach, they're going to come to other areas. They're going to sleep in other people's backyards, around their pools, and on their chase lounges. And at some point, this is going to end into an escalation. It hasn't become violent yet, or we haven't had any, thank God, it hasn't been any sort of really bad confrontation that I know of, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen in the future. So please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Kathleen Beckman.
Good morning. Thank you for your service, and thank you, Sheriff Galtieri, for your statement. So I serve on the COC, and I'm the chair of the executive committee, and we contract with Dr. Monica Ailsnick, who spoke earlier. She's the CEO of the HLA. And so I just wanted to make a couple of points as chair of the COC. So I didn't see the photos or the images that Sheriff Galtieri showed, but I can imagine what they are. And I would say it's not okay, if we have naked people defecating in a city or on a beach. It's not okay anywhere. St. Pete Beach, Clearwater, anywhere. Clearwater has about 80 chronic homeless that we deal with. And so it's a problem throughout our community. We have challenges. But we don't punish people who ride our Sunrunner for the behavior of a few. And I don't know that we've had any instances of accosting or violence or aggression on the Sunrunner. There might have been, I'm not familiar with all of the reports on the beach, although I do have the numbers from the sheriff's department. But we have thousands of people who fall under Alice characterization as an asset-limited, income-constrained, and employed. And those people who work in the tourism sector, those are lower-paying jobs, and they can certainly benefit from very reduced fares or free fares on that Sunrunner heading out to the beaches. Sheriff Galtieri made a statement that we need to do something about this out here, and I agree. But really, the out here is throughout the county. So this issue isn't just in St. Pete Beach. We have, as Dr. Alesnick said, thousands of people who are dealing with homelessness right now, thousands of children, families, children aging out of foster care. So it is complex, as Ms. Fox said, it is highly complex. And what I would ask you to do is to bring people to the table to discuss what options we might have. The COC board has people from, we have a representative from PSTA, Ron Silvers. We have a representative from the Sheriff's Department, Lieutenant Haish, who's a phenomenal partner to work with. We have April Lott, who's Directions for Living. We have a number of people that are experts in their field throughout the county who should sit at a table and collaborate and discuss and come up with some solutions. Sheriff Galtieri mentioned that people don't utilize Safe Harbor. Let's find out why. The COC has a committee of people with lived experience. So they're either homeless right now or they were recently homeless. They're a robust group of people who engage and will help find solutions. So before you make any decisions, I would encourage you to bring more stakeholders to the table to think about how to address this creatively and specifically to our county. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dan Nelson?
Good morning, my name is Dan Nelson. I live at 9425 Blind Pass Road in St. Pete Beach. I appreciate the board allowing me to voice my concerns today about the increased crime in St. Pete Beach. I'm not here to point fingers at the PSTA, rather I hope we can find solutions. I retired from a career in law enforcement, so I'm obviously familiar with crime and the impact it has on quality of life issues for the public, and this seems to be the main issue. I watched the last PSTA board meeting online and heard residents of St. Pete Beach voice valid concerns regarding the increased crime and the issues that no fair riders may be creating. Also at this meeting, a citizen provided crime statistics he collected from the Pinellas Sheriff's Office showing that crime in St. Pete Beach had increased since the Sunrunner became operational in St. Pete Beach. Subsequently, the PSTA CEO, Brad Miller, spoke at a planning committee meeting and contradicted the statistics provided by the citizen and stated, and I quote, "I did a deep dive into the data provided to the board by the citizen and concluded that crime had not increased." And if you still don't believe what the sheriff had to say today about his statistics, the contradiction can easily be resolved. This board could simply make a motion to request the Pinellas Sheriff's Records Division, who actually collect the data, and provide you with the statistics for a specific period before and after implementation of the Sunrunner to see if in fact crime has risen. If it has increased, the question that needs to be asked is, what are the variables that accounted for this increase? Was it the Sunrunner? This can be explained by a review of the PSO arrest demographics. Regarding the no fare policy, a spokesman from the Pinellas County Continuum of Care stated, and I quote, "Increasing the Sunrunner fares even nominally while requiring these fees to be paid electronically raises concerns about equity and accessibility. These concerns seem to be an exaggeration, as almost everyone today, including homeless and marginalized populations, have access to cell phones. If not, they may qualify under various programs, including the Lifeline program administered by the Federal Communication Commission to obtain free cell phones. So it doesn't seem to be an equity and accessibility issue. By providing free transportation, what are we really doing to help the less fortunate learn how to be responsible, accountable, and productive? I believe that collecting a minimal fare won't stop all crime in St. Pete Beach, but it certainly could help reduce it. And since the PSTA's plan all along was to charge a fare, is 50 cents really unreasonable? Lastly, I feel it's incumbent upon the board to listen to the concerns of residents and business owners in St. Pete Beach because this is our home. Law enforcement is already being stretched thin with decreased recruitment, and this situation will just add to their already full plate. As the sheriff just stated, the job of law enforcement is to enforce laws. But do we really want them to arrest their way out of this situation, or is there a better solution? Everyone should be able to work, shop, and explore the county and beaches. Let's just make sure that we're not creating new problems for a specific community. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Andy Oliver?
Reverend Andy Oliver, pastor of Allendale United Methodist Church. Sheriff, those pictures. Imagine if we were here creating discriminatory policies targeting all police based on the behavior of your worst officers. I think you refer to them as bad apples. You would be irate. You probably could have gotten away with charging a 50-cent fee, but now that the record has so clearly been established by a St. Pete Beach City Commissioner that this is to, quote, make our homeless neighbors' lives miserable, you kind of have a legal problem now. He said the quiet part out loud. This rate hike is in the same spirit as Jim Crow poll taxes and modern-day vagrancy laws that we still have on our books, even in St. Pete. Our city's legal counsel has admitted that our vagrancy policies would not hold up if challenged in court, so it's not time to add one more. This targeted cashless fee that also discriminates against those without a bank targets a specific group and restricts their intrastate travel as protected in our Florida Constitution. I've talked to lawyers, and they are chomping at the bit to sue over this rate hike, just like they did in 2011 when the city of St. Petersburg trespassed people from the right-of-way surrounding Williams Park, restricting their access to bus stops in Catrone versus the city of St. Petersburg. Not only did our unhoused neighbor beat the city had to pay their legal fee. Vagrancy laws were declared unconstitutional in 1972. To quote from the unanimous decision, a presumption that people who might walk or loaf or loiter or stroll or look suspicious to the police are to become future criminals is too precarious for the rule of law. The implicit presumption the crime is being nipped in the bud is too extravagant to deserve extended treatment. Of course, vagrancy statutes are useful to the police. Of course, they are nets making easy the roundup of so-called undesirables. But the rule of law implies equality and justice in its application. The rule of law, still quoting from this decision, evenly applied to minorities as well as majorities, to the poor as well as the rich, is the great muscleage that holds society together. The bare desire to harm a politically unpopular group is not a legitimate government issue, the Supreme Court said. We look back at Jim Crow policies and other policies that unconstitutionally discriminate against a specific class of people, and that's what this is designed to do. And we wonder what kind of people would pass such ugly discrimination. We're about to find out, with your vote, who those people are today. Future generations will look back and judge your actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin Miller.
Good morning. Robin Miller, President and CEO for the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber of Commerce, representing the business community of St. Pete Beach. I do want to let y'all know that I was one of the 6 or 7 people that traveled to DC to get this fabulous funding for this service. So this is not about supporting or not supporting. Our membership has supported the Sunrunner since that trip and beyond. However, we weren't aware that it would be a free service or free for this long. I issued a survey yesterday to businesses in St. Pete Beach. 847 emails were sent to the database we had to St. Pete Beach emails. 361 of those were opened, and 176 took the survey. 78.45%, when asked if they wanted the fare implemented, said yes. And if yes, we said, what should that fare be? The highest remark was $2. $3 was the second highest, and then anything equal to what you charge on your other services. Additionally, I called every hotel operator on St. Pete Beach yesterday. Unequivocally, their workload to get people off of their property, off of their cabanas, has increased exponentially. In some cases, they had gave me exclamation points in their responses. I don't need to articulate any of the other comments. I think that's been well stated by the sheriff, and he has articulated that all to the best degree. We have to remember that you mentioned, Whitney, that coding and the technology for the 250. Technology is advanced. I can't imagine it's that difficult to put 250 versus 50 cents or $3 into the technology. We have touted and praised the great Sunrunner. The Chamber did a great event with the business community on the Sunrunner. It's a fabulous service. We called it the Catalyst service when we went to DC, right? And being a Catalyst service, that's a premium, exquisite service. You all, great statistics. Let's put a value on that service. So we employ you today to make a good decision for both communities. I think we can come together. I have a building on St. Pete Beach. It's an information center. I get calls in there from the tourists, and I have walked into my own building and have had to clean it up on at least a handful of times, as speaking from the chamber and our physical address as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Stephanie Monk, I think. Yes, thank you.
Hello, I'm a resident of St. Petersburg, Florida. I'd like to just bring up some points. As far as I did ride the Sunrunner to see what it was all about, and as far as I took the ride about 11 o'clock in the morning, and there was about 2 people that dropped off at St. Pete Beach, and this was in April. Now, in regards to there were more people downtown, but my main thing is we're here to talk about the price, which you are in business. Okay, this is supposed to be making us money, not costing us money. We're taxpayers, okay? So as far as I believe in a fare, maybe $2, and the Flamingo card, people will beg and get money to go on. But I want to go with the sheriff, because you know what? I was in California, I lived in California, and we used to go to Venice Beach, Santa Monica. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. This was years ago. Now, people are on the beach, homeless. They're overtaken. If you go on YouTube, you look up Venice Beach, you look up Santa Monica. There are needles, people on drugs. This is just the beginning. And you have plans on taking this bus to other stops. This is going to be in the introduction of needles on the beach, drugs. Once you get this going, you're not going to get it off. So you are all enablers if you let this free fare go. Unfortunately, we do have homeless, but this is just the beginning. And I'm warning you, because I saw homeless in Los Angeles at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock. That was years ago, 20 years ago. There were 4,000 people. Now, I don't know how many more. But it's coming here if you don't stop it now. So I just want to let you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Donahoe?
Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak today. I want to thank the sheriff at St. Pete Beach for keeping us safe. I've recently moved, about 2.5 years ago, purchased property in St. Pete Beach. And since I actually moved down there, I have a dog. And when I walk at night, I've always felt safe. Recently, I've not felt so safe. Because the condominium association that I live at is near the 7-Eleven on Gulf Boulevard. I live basically behind it. We've had an increase of individuals at our swimming pools, in our laundry room. When people go up and ask them, you know, what are you doing here? They say, oh, well, I live here. I have a friend that lives here. And it's not true. But they take their trash, they throw it under the bushes. You know, we're having to clean it up. Safety, I mean, I've always felt safe when I've come down here to St. Pete Beach and walking my dog. But recently, just the individuals that are just showing up on our property. I don't know if any of you even use the Sunrunner. Have you gone to the Dolphin area and seen what the sheriff's been talking about? If that was in your backyard, you know, how you feel. I am guilty of assisting the homeless. I used to be a smoker, and when I would go to the 7-Eleven to buy a pack of cigarettes, you know, a guy would say, hey, can I have a cigarette? I'd give him a cigarette. I mean, I have compassion for these people. I would say, if you need something to drink, go get some Arizona teas. I get it. But I don't understand why we aren't charging something, why you aren't. We're the taxpayers. You got your money through government services, whatever. But I just don't see the real benefit in giving something free. I understand that there's individuals that have jobs down on the beach, and they need to get there. Give them vouchers. But we need at least a 50 cent. I mean, that's small, but it might help a little bit. And the bottom line is, you know, please vote to implement a fee. Give the vouchers. I'm trying to read my notes just in case I forgot something. And do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Robinson?
I don't really understand what the issue with charging a fare is. I'm looking at the hotels. Alex Ray just said the hotels are willing to do vouchers for their workers. And then you've got PSTA providing a reduced or no cost for low income. So what's the issue? Can somebody tell me? I mean, I don't understand what the issue is. We've got crime on St. Pete Beach. Do something about it. I mean, it's a direct result of this. I mean, you just displace the homeless basically from downtown St. Pete to St. Pete Beach. Look at what this lady just talked about. A case study would be Santa Monica. Google it. Look it up. Did nobody do due diligence on that when you started doing the whole free Sunrunner? The Sunrunner in general. Obviously, I'm for a fare.
All right. Thank you. Julie Casey, I think it is Julie.
Good morning, and thank you for letting me speak today. I wasn't going to come today. I am a business owner on the beach, and I always get nervous when I talk to you all, which is terrible because I was a speech major. But when I was getting ready for work today, I heard a sound I had never heard before, and it was, "This is the police. Open up, we're coming in." I'd never heard that on the beach before. We live on a street with about 15 houses, and I'm just curious if any of you have had a homeless person live on your street in the median, because I have. So I feel for the homeless. I really think it's a mental issue that needs to be addressed. And the beach does not have a place to feed them, to house them. There are other places that would be good. So I think the voucher idea for workers is tremendous. I actually worked in the hotel industry before I started a business on the beach. And I mean, I know how hard they work and what a life it is, and putting up with all sorts of interesting people. But let's face it, St. Pete Beach is a huge tourist area, and it makes a lot of money for Pinellas County. Do we want to ruin that by having high crime and homeless people everywhere? It's gonna, people are gonna stop coming here. It's no longer gonna be one of the top tourism places. And is that what you want? Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole Roberts?
Good morning. As a professional who works in downtown St. Pete and has used the Sunrunner dozens of times for both professional and leisure reasons, I am here expressing my support for you to keep the Sunrunner fare-free at least until the advertised date of November 1st. This service is a tremendous benefit to our local economy, providing car-free access to the city's major shopping corridor, as well as two of the largest employment centers in the county, and can be seamlessly used by individuals of all abilities and all economic statuses. To cut the fare-free period short would not be only a disservice to the riders who rely on this free access for employment opportunities and to patronize our local shops, but to those small business owners along the corridor. In the multitude of rides that I have taken on the Sunrunner and other PSTA routes, I have never felt unsafe and have always been impressed with how the buses are clean and well-maintained. It is a service that has personally given me the opportunity to patronize businesses in St. Pete Beach that I would have not accessed otherwise if I was only forced to access it by using my car. Unfortunately, the root of the issue we are facing here is homelessness, an issue facing many communities like ours around the country due to an overwhelming lack of affordable housing. This is an issue that does need to be addressed, but it is not PSTA's job to address this issue. PSTA's job is to provide excellent and accessible public transportation, which they have done with the Sunrunner. To charge for that service, especially prior to the date advertised for over 6 months, is in direct contradiction to that mission, removing a free resource that can be used by anyone in the community to access two of our largest employment centers in the county, giving individuals a chance to improve their economic status. Therefore, I urge the PST board to please keep the Sunrunner fare-free at least until the advertised date. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Vincent Nowicki.
Good morning, PSTA board. My name is Vincent Nowicki, a downtown resident. I've lived downtown St. Pete since about 2016, and I live a block away from Williams Park. And ever since the Sunrunner has been implemented, at sundown, there's not a single homeless person sleeping in Williams Park. Not a single one. Maybe one person on the bench, but nobody. And I've lived downtown, 1 block away from Williams Park since 2016. And since the implementation of the Sunrunner, you have practically nobody sleeping in Williams Park at night. And then I have a dog, so I walk her throughout the evening and in the early morning. And when the sun comes up, you see people getting off the 5th Street station and then walking and then sleeping in Williams Park throughout the rest of the day. And then I have a servant-filled heart, so I work with a lot of nonprofits and charities in Williams Park during the weekend, bringing food and clothing to people. So I guess I'm also guilty of enabling the problem. But as the sheriff said, we need to implement a fee. And it's your job to listen to the residents, listen to the taxpayers, and listen to the most authoritative law in the county and do your job. Implement a fee. And the Sunrunner is a complete boondoggle, in retrospect. If you go online, PSTA's, Facebook and Instagram, Nextdoor app, you can read hundreds of negative complaints about the Sunrunner, how it's taken away a lane, nobody rides it, it cost $44 million to build. It's a complete disaster. And then you have one lane just dedicated for buses, and then you have a bus in the right-hand lane on top of it. So it's completely inefficient. But aside from that, implement the fee immediately, listen to the sheriff, because these people are smart that are using this, that are manipulating the system. They talk about it in the weekend when I'm there at Williams Park, that it's a game. And they get off the 5th Street station and walk to Williams Park and then sleep there the rest of the day and loiter. So do your job, implement the fare, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. The last card I have is actually a request for a group speaker, April Murphy.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you? My name's April Murphy. I'm the SEIU rep
And all these people behind me are the patrol that we've been patrolling the Sunrunner for a while, and then we started it really big a few days ago. And, what the sheriff said is true. Homelessness is not against the law. We're not bashing homeless. That's not it. But it's the pictures he showed, that is legit. But I don't personally feel St. Pete Beach deserves any special treatment, especially when they don't contribute to PSTA. But with that being said, we have these kind of people all throughout Pinellas County. And, it's that Central Plaza, the nakedness, the drugs, the drunks, all of that, the trash. We have to call people to clean it up all the time. I do think, because we're facing a budget cut coming here in October, and we're going to be, talking about bus cuts and route changes, we should implement fares. When we went to the meeting, there was a few of us at the union, Kevin and I were there. We met with marketing. They told us about the Sunrunner, when it was going to be rolled out. We knew right away what was going to be on that bus. And, we probably made that bum runner name that we heard about, because we walked away from that meeting and said, all the, bums are going to be on it. And I don't call homeless bums. I call the nakedness, the druggies, the pictures that the sheriff showed, that's what we call bums. We're not calling homeless people bums at all. I own several properties throughout Pinellas County all the way to Pasco County. So my taxes, I feel, pays a lot too. But with that being said, we're willing, we would help any way we can. I don't know that we could stop them from going to St. Pete Beach. Maybe St. Pete Beach should hire their own security guards, I don't know. But we have, the passengers on the Sunrunner have said, what a difference it is when they see a patrol on the bus and they get on they'll turn around and walk off, but they bring all their baggage. It is kind of gross, but it's on all our buses. It'd be nice if we can clean up all our buses. Not just St. Pete Beach. When we had the cat trolley free for a couple years, it was downtown. Nobody said anything about it then, but we do believe fares will resolve some of this, but you guys are in a tough spot, as you can see. You got pros and cons. Everybody's telling you, do your job. I can't stand to hear that, because y'all are doing your job. It's a tough job. It's not easy. But we're willing to help, any way we can. But again, it's not against the homeless. It's against that small group of people that do take advantage of our buses. They disrespect the rules. They have no rules. They come, they flash on our buses. We have to kick them off. And we do that to keep our passengers safe and our drivers safe. And we're still willing to do that. But, it's a tough spot. This is Kevin. He wants to speak.
Yeah, I'm Kevin Sablon. I'm the chapter chair here for the SEI union at PSTA. I mean, April touched on what the problem is and stuff, but nobody has said what the cause is. I mean, this is the most important thing that people need to do, is get out and vote for your leaders here. I mean, and you got to research your candidates. You can't just vote Democrat or Republican. You got to get out there. You got to make sure that they hold the same views as you. I mean, this is all a result of our current federal administration. This is what socialism looks like. I mean, this is what you guys asked for when you put Biden in office. So, no, I'm going to say it. I mean, this is the truth.
God bless you. Let him talk long. God bless you.
Thank you. I mean, research your candidates. Make sure their campaigns aren't funded by George Soros or the devil, Bill Gates, anybody like that. I mean, somebody has to speak up and say it. I mean, and for God's sakes, there's another pandemic coming up here in another month or two. Do not comply. Do not wear the mask. Don't take the poison vaccine.
Okay. Sir, if you could keep this relevant.
Hey,
to the-
anyway,
we need to keep this relevant
back
to
to
the agenda.
Patrol and the Sunrunner.
Thank you, April.
We will, we will do whatever you guys want. You guys are doing a good job. You're in a tough spot. You're going to be damned if you do and damned if you don't. I think possibly we should, maybe the $2 fare somewhere in there, but, if not, we can take care of it. The patrol can still take care of what I call the bums on the bus. So I'm comfortable either way, whatever way you go. But I think with the budget cuts coming, it'd be kind of stupid not to have the fares. So that's my opinion.
All right. Thank you. That's the last of the cards that I have. Have any others been submitted at this point? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment and go to our board discussion. And it looks like Commissioner Latvala has requested first.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And thank you for everyone that was here. When I walked in, I noticed the banner that's displayed up there, and I wanted to congratulate Brad and the team for being the best in the nation. But I will also remind my fellow board members that our sheriff is best in the nation. He's been the National Sheriff of the Year previous, which is a very tough task to achieve. And a great honor. And so when he speaks, I think it is up to us to take those words to heart, because he knows what he's talking about. And so one of the questions, I don't know if we're going to have an opportunity to ask the presenters questions, but one of the questions I would ask him is if they've seen those issues in other cities along the beach that he mentioned. One of the speakers spoke, and I don't want to point him out, but he's from the complete opposite end of the political spectrum that I am on. But it probably was the first time that I've ever agreed with something that he said. And that is that we may be opening up ourselves to a lawsuit. But my concern is that we may have already done things that have done that, such as the CEO's suggestion to implement a one-way fare. I'm not sure if, and I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not sure if that's discriminatory to set a fare going in one direction but not the opposite direction. Several months ago, when we were discussing on whether or not to institute a fare, I asked if businesses express issues with it being free. I was told by the CEO that everyone was on board. Soon after that meeting, business owners and leaders at the beach told me that was not the case. The concerns they expressed then were the same reasons why we are here today. I support the full fare, and I previously have done so. I think we should do a full fare immediately. I do not understand how the CEO was able to try to implement a fee without the board approval. Will he be able to do the same with, say, the Veterans Program, or does this mean that he could also take fares away if he sees fit? I am also, and probably most importantly, I'm troubled with how PSTA has handled this issue. I'm concerned that with the haphazard approach and the public comments that have already been made by our leaders of PSTA, that it's opened us up to a potential lawsuit, such as, the one-way fare and others. And I want to close by sharing a story that was given to me by a constituent. It was texted to me, so it's a public record. A constituent relayed a story that happened this past Sunday afternoon. A PSTA worker was wearing a yellow vest, and I guess she was one of the patrols that was mentioned. 22nd Street and 1st Avenue North by Grand Central. It was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. She told people that they couldn't sleep, put their feet in aisles, and they being PSTA wanted to keep the bus clean, which is all well and good. But then she made the comment, and I quote, "We don't want any riffraff on here," which I'm not sure what riffraff is in this sense, but she made the comment. Most concerning of it was that she made that comment to 3 black gentlemen who were sitting together. And that the story was relayed to me by this constituent that she did not think any of those gentlemen were homeless. So, maybe, hopefully it's just a lack of training, but, we need to treat our riders fairly, equitably, with integrity. Because whether they're homeless or not homeless, if they're one of our customers, they need to be treated with respect and dignity. It was mentioned before that there are businesses at the beach that have voucher programs and things like that, and I think that's something that PSTA should, if we do implement a full fare, we should certainly work with those businesses to do. But there's no reason why, especially given our financial situation, that we should not have we should not have a full fare immediately. And given the fact that our CEO is going to institute a fare with a week's notice, I don't think should take 60 days to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to agree with everything that Commissioner LaValle said, and also thank all the speakers for coming out today. Particularly appreciate the last one that lightened the mood somewhat, so thank you very much for that. But having free fares for a period of time to kick a service off is one thing, but these last few months has been an absolute disaster. And really what we've done is we have enabled a slice of San Francisco to be brought down to St. Petersburg Beach, and that just isn't right. And we need to make that situation correct. And I am very concerned. I agree with one of the speakers we had earlier. They said that if we could become Venice Beach if we don't do something, if we don't take some action here. So, we plan to go to full fares on November 1. I don't see any reason why it would take 2 to 3 weeks to reprogram the system to go to our full fare of $2.25. I think that's absolutely 100% what we need to do. And from a bigger perspective as well, talk about killing sentiment for public transit. Who's going to want to ride the bus if we can't solve this problem? And talk about not being able to get support for future public transit investments. Granted, implementing a fare won't solve all of that, but it'll go a long way to it. We have a lot of discounted fare programs for people of reduced means. You can buy a TD bus pass for $11. And I would guarantee that every one of these homeless riders would qualify for one of those. They can ride the system for all they want, but at least they're paying something into the system. This was designed and built as a premium transit product. The fact that we're not charging anything for it says that it has no value. If something has no value, then we're devaluing it, and we shouldn't be doing it. So we absolutely should be charging a fare for this. And with the city of St. Petersburg offering to buy down some of the fares, I actually think that number is actually going to be quite a bit higher, because as we talked at the Finance Committee last week, that real number is probably closer to $700,000, maybe even $800,000. It could even be higher than that, because the majority of the riders on this service won't qualify for reduced fares, because a lot of them are going to be tourists. So they're going to be full fare paying customers. So I really think that we need to implement our full fare of $2.25 as quickly as we possibly can, and do everything we can to make this situation right down in St. Pete Beach. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Flowers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to everyone who came out, who've been to our previous meetings and for today, as well as those of you who have sent emails, because I did go through and I read each and every one, and I responded to a few of them. So I want to thank you for that. I want to clear up some things initially before I go into some of the potential solutions that I brought forward at the Planning Committee meeting. The first is the City of St. Petersburg did not, has not, and has never purposefully encouraged or asked persons who are unhoused to get on the Sunrunner and go to the City of St. Pete Beach. So that was a very unfair statement, and that is an untrue statement. And sometimes when we say and do things like that, we drum up unwarranted animosity. And we're taking away from what this issue really is today. So it's not one city against another city. Unhoused persons, homeless persons, is an issue that is countywide, statewide, and nationwide. There are people who are homeless that you would never know that they're homeless. And there are others whom we're talking about today, unfortunately, who are just choosing to check out. They don't want any part of any type of system where there are rules. And so when we begin labeling everyone with the same brush, that concerns me. Because some of us are wealthier than others, but some of us are one paycheck away from being homeless. So I think we need to really think about that before we start putting people into certain categories. I want to thank Sheriff Bob Gualtieri for coming today, and for showing those pictures. Those are photos also that I know other cities have seen for years, and they've dealt with this issue for years. If you go back to what Reverend Andy Oliver was talking about, that was 2011, but there was a homeless issue even way before then. And so this is a problem that has been occurring throughout our county. St. Pete Beach is just now experiencing what other communities have experienced for years. I am not saying that it is appropriate to be naked in public. I'm not saying that it is appropriate to have the release of bodily fluids in public. I'm not saying it's appropriate for you to walk out of your business and to have things that you need to clean up before you can even start your day. Because there are other communities that have had those issues and they have had to deal with those issues. But I just want to share that this is not a single issue towards St. Petersburg Beach. Now, this is something that some people from St. Pete Beach may not like. April alluded to it already. But the city of St. Pete Beach does not pay into public transportation. You receive the benefit, so essentially you're receiving a free service. You receive the benefit of whether it's the trolley or whether it's the Sunrunner. And individuals are there are persons who are coming into St. Pete Beach to work. I've spoke to the hoteliers down there. And I visit St. Pete Beach a lot. I have dinner out there. I hang out at the beach, all the way from Paso Grill going all the way up to the north part of our county. But there are several of us that are paying into a service that is benefiting the bottom line when you talk about tourism. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I am saying, though, that when we start talking about people shouldn't have things for free, again, you've got to be careful about when you address what you're receiving and what other persons are taking advantage of. There are service provisions for those who are unhoused. Thank you so much. I used to serve on the COC committee. Thank you, Ms. Beckman, for coming down, and thank you to the executive director for the HLA. She's somewhere around here, because I know how difficult it has been trying to get individuals to take advantage of the services. In an article that was written July 15th, 2011 regarding Safe Harbor and the point-in-time count, there were a number of persons who talked about the services that are available for those who are unhoused, especially when we have weather concerns. It has been extremely hot, and then in the wintertime, it's cold. We have our cold night shelters that open. And certainly during hurricanes and things of that nature, we're trying to provide places for them. But one thing that this article really focused on and talked about was that you have some who will accept and receive the services, and they go willingly without an issue or concern. You have others who find what they call hidey holes. So while some numbers have been given to us today about the number of people that may have some concerns or issues and in turn are riding the Sunrunner continuous looped routes, or going to stay out on the beaches in the cabanas where they should not be, in the parking lots where they should not be. They are also taking refuge in buildings that are vacant or alleyways behind certain things wherever they can find refuge. And so it is an extreme problem. Prior to the Sunrunner being put into place, the trolley was available, and it still is available, to go down to St. Pete Beach. I was behind one the other day, and I know for a while the trolley was free, and then there was a fee that was implemented in order to assist in paying for the services. Initially, when we talked about the Sunrunner, yes, we talked about stopping that service in February, but it was to get individuals to understand what the Sunrunner was, because this community has lost out a number of times because public transportation prior was not looked at as though it was public transportation for everybody. Persons looked at public transportation as though it was only for people who were low income or didn't have means. And we are trying to communicate that public transportation is a means to take cars off of the road, to reduce carbon emissions, to provide services so that we're not always looking at having to build 5-story garages to take up for the automobile counts and things of that nature. There are so many other communities that are so far ahead of us in public transportation because we have traditionally not looked at it that way. But the Sunrunner is an additive to it. So for persons who may think that having that one lane dedicated so that the bus moves continuously and gets persons places on 15-minute intervals, sorry you feel that way, but there are also thousands of people who have noted to us that they appreciate the Sunrunner and that they support the services of the Sunrunner. Bus passes can be attained by anyone, so I don't think the 50-cent fare is going to stop anything. I said that in the planning committee, and I'm going to say this publicly. I did not support and do not support the 50-cent fare. I do believe it provides, unfortunately, a disparate opportunity for people. If we're going to charge, it needs to be a everybody charge, not a charge at just certain pickup locations. If you tell me I have to pay 50 cents to get on at First Avenue South and 32nd Street, but I don't have to pay 50 cents to get on 2nd Street and First Avenue, I'm gonna go down to 2nd and take it. People aren't, they may be unhoused and homeless, but they ain't crazy and they're not dumb. So, you know, they are resourceful, so I don't think that's gonna work. And I would have to agree that if we could turn a ship around to add a 50-cent fare, we could turn a ship around to add a $2 or $2.50 fare. And when we're utilizing debit cards, most everybody carries a debit card. Most everybody has a bank card. Individuals choose to go get the Flamingo card or whatever. So I don't think it would be that difficult to institute fares. And I do believe that based on what we have been able to do before here at PSTA regarding communicating to the public, opportunities that we have, things that we're rolling out, I don't think it will take 60 days. The sheriff is paying $10,000, he says, a week. I did speak with him about that. Those are dollars that he's not accounted for. Can PSTA continue to pay for the security detail that we have out there? I don't think we can, because if we're talking about cutting routes, I'm certainly not going to support paying for a security detail when I'm talking about cutting routes that people utilize those routes to get to and from wherever it is that they're going. So we can't continue to do that as well. Thank you, Sheriff, for providing a better picture. A gentleman, a former police officer, gave a very good accounting for his feelings. Thank you so much, Sheriff, for providing those statistics and for stating that just what the crimes are for the homeless, because persons have come to that podium and they've made it appear as though it's assault. Well, there have been some assaults, but it's higher tiered crimes, and it's not. So I don't want individuals to walk away thinking that that has not been accounted for, because the sheriff did give us the numbers. And then staff here did sit and meet with the the sheriff, and they talked about the numbers that were presented also by a gentleman from the public. So what were my 3 potential solutions? First of all, I think that the story that went out about the 50-cent fare went out too quick. I wish that the board had been communicated with and that we would have had an opportunity to meet either in committees or whatever to really talk about that and flush it out a little bit more. I think that if we had done that, we may have been able to come up with some additional solutions. One of them I agreed with and put forth in the planning committee. Councilmember Beckman talked about it, which was having those social service providers at the table when we're talking about what we're going to do for the chronic homeless that are the topic of the discussion today. So one potential, and these are all potential, you guys, there's been no vote on anything, so please don't say that Renee said. Just take these as potential recommendations. That we stop the Sunrunner from running into St. Pete Beach, which would give us time to sit down with staff and with representatives from the Sheriff's Department, representatives from St. Pete Beach, as well as the social service and wraparound services organizations to talk about how we could handle this in a more thoughtful way versus making a quick decision, which is what we may be looking at making on today. The other is, I suggested that we just go ahead and implement full fare. There were some people very upset in saying that we're charging a full fare and it's unfair to those individuals who are unhoused or homeless. They will be paying a full fare in November anyway. So I don't think that that is being implemented and targeted just at them if we implement it to everyone that is across the board. And I don't think it would take 60 days to do that. The other would be that PSTA continue to have its monitors and its security detail, if you will, at those locations. And having Brad to work with the sheriff's office to talk about what type of training or conversation it would be from those security persons. I'm not sure if they have the powers to arrest. I don't think they do. I could be wrong. But we certainly don't want them to be pushing that issue and or concern further into the community because that's not helping the issue either. But I think to make a decision today that has put all of us in a quandary. I know it has put me in a quandary because whatever decision we make today, persons who are unhoused or homeless, they have access to bus passes. So if they want to go out to the beach, they're going to go out to the beach. They have an opportunity to get money. Sometimes they panhandle. They'll be able to get a little card from ACE or AMSCOT and get a card and pay to go out there. So that may not necessarily be the answer. A person has got to want to make a change or make a difference and be willing to accept the services that are available for them to make that change and make a difference. And there are some people who that's not just what they want, but that should not negatively impact other individuals. That this is what we saw in St. Pete. And yes, it went all the way to the 11th Circuit, as Mr. Oliver talked about today when it came to the homeless that were sleeping on the steps of City Hall. They were sleeping in Williams Park. They were sleeping in the nooks and crannies of businesses. Business owners down there were complaining. So this is a problem. It is a concern. And we're not going to arrest our way out of it. Thank you, Sheriff, for wanting to continue to be a supporter of trying to find other opportunities versus arresting people. But those were the potential options that I put on the table. And I did not put it out there to say that the Sunrunner would never run down to St. Pete Beach. I said to have that conversation and dialogue and to cease the service going out to St. Pete Beach, other than utilizing the trolley until we've had a chance to really figure out how we can wrap our arms around this and come up with a solution, not a quick fix, not a knee-jerk reaction, but a potential solution. So that's all I have to say for now. And Madam Chair, thank you so much. And I just want to say to you all, I have to take care of something that's very important at 11, but I'm going to be in the room right next door. So please don't tell people that Renee said what she said and got up and left. I'm coming back. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Flowers. Next, we'll go to Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Renee, for what you just set forth there. I also agree with Commissioner Latvala and especially Reverend Oliver on what they had to say regarding the 50-cent fare. I thought that was a knee-jerk reaction. And as you stated, Commissioner Flowers, that anybody can go out and get a pass to get, but they can't on this particular route because it's a tap to pay, and we don't have paper tap to pay. It is coming, and that will be in November, as I understand it. And so I'm totally, absolutely opposed to any kind of 50-cent fare that would, the reason that is being proposed is to simply target a particular population, which is absolutely not right. It's redlining essentially, to go back to past days on how we dealt with what we would call the undesirables or the boogeymen or whatever we want to call them. When it comes to the free fares going on, I'd be very interested to hear from either Councilman Albritton from Clearwater or Councilwoman Beckman, as Clearwater Beach has free service that's available to get folks from the mainland to the beach. And are there issues with the homeless going on Clearwater Beach, and how are they dealt with? I'd like that for comparison. And also when it comes to the upcoming increase in fare, I would like us to dig in a little deeper on the proposal from the city of St. Pete to pay for this, and that would come from you, Debbie, if possible. The proposal they have made and is in comparison to what it actually would be, the cost, as Commissioner Scott alluded to. So I think that's important to look at that and maybe try to still keep that on the table. I really support that initiative that St. Pete has proposed, and it's guaranteed money also, which is very important too. As to the residents of St. Pete Beach, it's been a long, rocky road with even getting Sunrunner going. There were numerous meetings with the council people at St. Pete Beach, and the public meetings didn't go very smoothly. And PSTA actually agreed to shorten the route, shorten the buses, and just to get this passed through. So I guess along what you said, Commissioner Flowers, my recommendation would be to absolutely no 50-cent fare and really no immediate fare. Right now, I would like us to stay the course that it would happen in November as planned, as Ms. Fox or Mrs. Fox said that there was going to be a learning process with it. We need to wait until we have the opportunity for individuals that don't have a debit card, a credit card, or Flamingo card to be able to go out and purchase a paper card that's tappable, and they could use on that route as well. So that would be my recommendation on this issue. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Fig Sanders.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I'm not going to repeat what a lot has been said, but I did. I took a whole lot of notes, because I was really contemplating what I was gonna say in regards, but one thing that came, with me, that woke up in my heart today is that whatever we decide today, we are going to have to be systematic and compassionate about how we've gotten here. Sheriff Galtieri, thank you. You know that I've always been a fan. When it comes to our homeless, I don't think this issue is strictly about the homeless. My position is I was totally floored to get correspondence about the immediate implementation of a 50-cent fee. I was totally floored about a decision being made in bypassing the procedure of having that conversation with our board members. I was floored. And not to take away the credibility of our input, we came to a decision as a group. We voted. It was a collaborative effort to be where we are. Do I disagree with anything that has been said? Some. Have I listened to the comments? All of them. When it comes to the number of citations and ordinances that were done on St. Pete Beach, my first question was, are they unduplicated? You can arrest one person 20 times. That impacts the numbers. When you say we're going to implement a 50-cent rate without bypassing a public hearing, would we, as a board, be justifiable in not allowing the public to speak on such a matter as this? When I hear that the St. Pete mayor and council are trying to move the homeless away from their high-rise apartments, growth is happening everywhere. There's a migration happening everywhere. We're not trying to move the homeless. Someone asked, did you have someone homeless living on your street? Absolutely. And we fed her. We made sure she had warm blankets when it was cold. We gave her water. She lived there for years because she did not want to fit into our world, but we didn't push her out. So I want to answer that question. I totally agree with Councilmember Beckman. We have to have more people to the table for this. We have to have the input from the HLA, those that have the lived experiences of being homeless. I do not advocate, because I have grandchildren, and me personally, I don't want to see anybody defecating in public spaces. I don't want to see anybody nude taking showers. I don't want to see any of that. That's not what we're saying when we're talking about the homeless. They have needs, but together the bigger picture are the services. Those that provide services to the homeless, I thank you. And I appreciate you, because that is such a difficult population to serve. People are homeless for so many different reasons. And to now be said that we're going to implement this fee going one way and not the other way, if we're going to do it, let's do it across the board. Let's not show that injustice. You know, we talk a lot about equity. Equity is one thing, but justice is another. And I want to make sure that when we implement this, we have time. I don't know if it's 30 days or 60 days, but I don't want to rush. I do not want to rush this. I heard someone say that there's no value because you're not charging for the service. I beg to differ. I beg to differ for those people that ride it and depend on it for transportation that don't have a car, to those businesses that have seen an increase in patronage because more people are having access to their services. So any and everything you do, there is a value. Because you don't see it monetarily, don't displace its worth. Yeah, I have notes everywhere. But my major concern was how this all came about, number one. How it was handled initially, number two. Not including all of those that need to be to contribute to a resolution, because there's not going to be a fast resolution. There will not be. We didn't get here overnight. And April, your group, thank you so much for what you do. You know I'm a big supporter anyway, because it's those of us that don't need to ride the Sunrunner. It's those of us that we have cars. You know, emission is one of our top priorities. Keeping, you know, cars off the street, depending on the situation, isn't one on our agenda. But it's those that depend on that public transportation. You have to think about it. A lot of the people depending on transportation are coming from up north because that's what they're used to. We're still trying to catch up with providing adequate transportation in the St. Petersburg. We're trying to catch up. And if we're going to depend on tourist dollars, I think we need to accommodate. So the 50-cent fee for me, if we're going to do it all or none. I am going to support the city of St. Petersburg. I'm going to support my mayor. I'm going to support the city's administration in our offer to help make that service available for everyone. I don't want homeowners to feel uncomfortable when they come outside their homes. I don't want to feel uncomfortable when I come out of mine. But when I heard it was a St. Pete Beach issue, the first thing came to my mind was, so does that mean other communities in the city of St. Petersburg have the same privilege and the right and the honor to come before PSTA and demand a service for their communities? Does that make it right? Does that open that door of opportunity for other organizations to come here and tell us just what we need to do? That's just a question I have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Oliver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to everyone who came out today to speak, and to the staff who put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into analyses of what we might do. There's no good solution to this issue, this problem. And so anything that is suggested is not going to make everybody happy, including what I'm about to say. I'm on the planning committee with a number of folks here, and was very concerned about the immediate imposition of a 50-cent one-way for the purposes of potential lawsuits, as well as just not being the right thing to do. And so I'm glad that the board is able to have that conversation today and to talk that through. Now, the sheriff is right. This is not a homeless problem, but it is an issue. We're not San Francisco. This is not a total disaster. Maui's a total disaster. But we have to address it. But we have to be careful not to get our passions too inflamed and succumb to death by anecdote. This is a problem that has to be addressed. And one of the things I've appreciated about the PSTA board in my short tenure here, shorter than many of you, is that they've been deliberate in terms of how they've moved forward with problems and issues. They haven't had a knee-jerk reaction like the 50-cent fare. So I strongly support making no changes to November 1st. I think that gives us the time to bring in more stakeholders to the table. It gives us time to consider Mayor Welch's proposal to buy down the fare. I realize that means 2 more months of difficulty and enforcement issues. And I appreciate the sheriff's comments and what he had to say, and recognize that that's a difficult problem. But it is a problem I think we can overcome for 2 months while we do the analysis that allows us to make a better decision about the fares. This has been a problem for 6 months. If I hear you that this was a March, it really kind of kicked in. That means 2 more months of enforcement, and I think that's a good course of action. I would also state, as I did when we extended the Sunrunner fare for another 6 months, that I have concern with no fare. I have a concern with a 0 fare. And I think the notion of a reduced fare, potentially with a subsidy from, as Mayor Welch has suggested, but not a free fare. I don't think a free fare makes sense for all the reasons that have been stated before. And if we do have a fare, the hotels can issue passes for workers. The chambers of commerce can issue cards for tourists. Let's get creative in how to address the issue so that tourists who can pay the fare, pay the fare. So, number one, let's be deliberate and move forward with a November 1st fare increase. And let's, on November 1st, let's charge a fare, maybe a reduced fare, as a way to address the issues that have come up from the sheriff, as well as from the notion of potentially needing some additional revenue, so we do not have to cut the 6 routes that are on the table for our budget discussions in the month ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I call on the next person, I wanted to let Commissioner Albritton, joining us via Zoom, to know that I have recognized that you have your hand up, and so we are going to go next to Commissioner Reed, then Commissioner Schulman, and then Commissioner Albritton. Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Chair. One of the things that, we talked about in the Finance Committee too was that when we found out that our employees were being security guards on the Sunrunner, which I don't believe that that is something that they signed up for, nor should they be put in that position to be put on the bus to enforce the law. I think it's a bad decision, and I think that if it's something that we needed to do for our buses, it would be something we would need to do across the board. That's something that I don't think any of us up here knew was happening, and if they did, I didn't know. And I believe then we would have to look at a proper training to have people or something in place for that. So that's one thing that we had no idea. I had no idea. So I don't think it's their job to do that. Secondly, I don't think anybody should have labels. So we keep going back to the homeless label when it's actually a person. It's a people, whether they're homeless, whether they're making bad decisions, they've had things that have happened in their lives that have put them in a bad place or in a place that they choose to be, and it doesn't fit into what we choose. But across the board, it's a problem throughout Pinellas County. I'm a retired law enforcement. I can tell you in Pinellas Park, we have a homeless outreach program. We work a lot with the sheriff and so forth. So I think that when you talk about doing something that's going to affect people, you have to affect people across the board, not just one way, not just St. Pete Beach, not just there. It's across the board. And that's the only way to be fair. PSTA has in place many, many options for people to be able to fill out. We even just implemented a new online form, I believe, to make it easier for people to get discounted cards, to be able to get help to get back and forth, even to work. We have special programs. So it's out there. Whether people utilize it or not, that's not our fault, but it is out there. So I believe that if we implement the fair across the board, because then we take out labels, we take out all of the rest of it and make it to where, because we're talking about budget cuts, we're talking about cutting out bus rides for people who may need it to get back and forth to work, and we're wanting to cut it, but yet we're wanting to give away free rides. So that doesn't kind of even up for me. So I believe we need to relook at that. And I agree with, everybody has touched on that subject, except for the fact that, the businesses are very creative. So if they want to do something to help the tourists, to help their employees, then they come talk to PSTA, and what can we do for them to issue passes? What can they do to benefit their people and the tourists and so forth, and make it a perk, not make it a hindrance? So I believe that, I just believe it has to be fair across the board. As far as the 50-cent thing, and I think it was a knee-jerk reaction because everybody was kind of scrambling, but I do believe that there is a solution there. But again, that's just my thought on it.
Thank you for that. Next is Councilmember Schuman.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So I don't want to touch on a lot of the things that have already been said. I do want to say that I want to agree, as I seem to find myself doing with Commissioner Oliver, that there is no solution that will make everyone happy. But my hope is that at the end of the day, we do remember that this has shined the light back onto the issue of homelessness in our community, and those that are unhoused and the services that are being provided, because I think it tends to ebb and flow in our minds. And so I'm hopeful that what happens here today and what's been happening, what's been brought to light, carries forward, and we do bring people to the table so that we can continue to address issues. I did want to speak to some of the actions that Mr. Miller took, that Commissioner Fig Sanders brought out. we did express at both the Finance and the Planning Committee that we felt that the plan was a knee-jerk reaction. It was too fast. It wasn't deliberate. The board had voted in a different direction. But that doesn't mean that it was done, that his decisions were done with malice, right? It was done with the intent of trying to find a solution, working with the sheriff, working with the cities, working with other stakeholders over 4 weeks. So I appreciate that effort in doing that. Along the same token, I appreciate that we pulled that and brought it back to the board and listened to what the committee members were saying at the Finance and Planning Committee and saying, okay, now this needs to be a bigger conversation. That initial reactive step to try to help all of the different stakeholders needed to come back for further deliberation. So, Mr. Miller's job is, as he said in one of the committee meetings, is to get people to ride the bus and to get people to move throughout the county. And so I think that he was attempting to do that. So I just want to make sure that I too felt that it was not the best solution. I said that in the Finance and Planning Committee meetings, but we're here talking about it with nothing having been implemented. So we're here doing what we were meant to do. I did also want to mention some of the things we've heard, some of the public speakers, and I know the sheriff spoke about some of the crime statistics. I appreciate setting the record straight that the statistics that were presented by the community member at the last month's meeting didn't necessarily line up with what the sheriff is seeing. But I also want to make sure that we're talking that, and I don't know, I don't have the full context, but that's what I'm wondering about. So one of the, I forget which statistic it was, but there was a 500% increase in a particular crime. And so is that from one instance to 6 instances? Is it 100 instances to 600 instances? I mean, so there's a context when we hear percentages that are that we're missing a little bit. So it can seem dramatic. I know when we've looked at our own records, we might see that, wow, there's a 300% increase, and yeah, it went from 1 to 3. And so it was like, okay, that's not as big of a concern as the initial headline number is. So we're sometimes missing that context. Same thing we heard the city manager from St. Pete Beach talk about the reduction in tourism. But there were no numbers that talked about our bookings down. Did we have cancellations? I went on several different travel websites before this meeting and just put in St. Pete Beach and was reading comments from people. And I wasn't seeing anything that was demonstrably different than any other community I've ever looked at, whether it be in Orlando or Seattle or Pittsburgh. It was the same types of pros and cons, a lot more pros for St. Pete Beach, I'll give them that. The other thing to keep in mind is that when we're looking at statistics, we need to make sure that we're also, one of the other speakers talked about the different, we don't know what the actual cause is of these things. And we are coming out of a pandemic. Right, the tourism is being re-engaged across all of our beach communities, and so we are now also all kind of getting reused to what life is like with people having free mobility around the country and around our county, and so there's a lot going on, and so I'm not necessarily certain that PSTA is necessarily at fault, nor the single solution for what ails us. I was originally very much in favor of delaying the 6-month implementation of fares earlier this year because I wanted to get a full year's worth of data on ridership. Who's riding? When are they riding? And so that because we have such a cyclical and it's not a very even ridership with the different seasons that we have. And I still hold with that. I am still absolutely of the conviction that we should charge full fares starting on November 1st. That was our plan. It gives us a full year of data on the no fares. It gives us time to implement a proper communication strategy with the public and to train them on how to use the system. It gives us opportunity to get our retail network in place so that all users have access to ride. I also, and I wasn't going to mention this, but Commissioner Flowers brought it up that St. Pete Beach is not a tax-paying member to PSTA. They don't pay tax. Now, they do pay for some services, so I don't want to say that they don't pay for anything, but they are not a tax-paying member as most of the rest of Pinellas County is. And this body has made a ton of concessions to St. Pete Beach with regards to the Sunrunner. We have changed the shape, the buses that we wanted. We went with shorter buses because they didn't want larger buses. We changed where the route was gonna go because they didn't want it to go in certain places. And I'm not inclined to continue to make concessions to a group that has, while I understand their problem, and I have had homeless people sleep on my street, I'm not of the mindset to continue to concede for a 2-month span when our organization is best served by communicating properly to the larger public about what the Sunrunner is going to be changing to with full fare. So I think it is a knee-jerk reaction. I think it is, and it is not appropriate. So I would continue with having a November 1st start date of the full fare rate, and then we owe it to ourselves as an organization to charge that fare for a full year, and then see what did it do to ridership, what did it do to increasing partnerships with other community partners like the hoteliers that might buy passes. And I would encourage, Mrs. Fox said that and I didn't realize that St. Pete has a budget allocation for TD riders in her presentation. So for transportation disadvantaged riders, there's a budget allocation for that, which is wonderful. I would say take this $200,000 that they're interested in using for the Sunrunner and add that to the TD budget to help disadvantaged riders ride the system. The final thing I also wanted to say, and this is one of the reasons why I want to have the full fare in November, is because I'm not certain from a ridership standpoint how many of our current riders don't ride the Sunrunner as part of their travel plans, right? So if you don't live on the corridor where the Sunrunner is, then you're likely taking another PSTA bus to get to the Sunrunner, which means you likely already have a pass. So in essence, the Sunrunner is already free. So it's, we need that data to be able to make a deliberative response. And I agree with Commissioner Scott that the funds that we probably can expect from the Sunrunner are more than what the $200,000 that the city is willing to pay. And even though the cities might be willing to pay more, I think we owe it to ourselves to understand what the community of riders are willing to pay for this service versus local government. So with that, I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Albritton.
Thank you. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Thanks, Sheriff Gauteri, for being here today, and all that have spoken today. I tell you, it's very compelling viewpoints. I wanted to just say that the Sunrunner I heard today, the positives is a catalyst service, and it is definitely a service that builds ridership to St. Pete Beach. I was asked early, what does Clearwater do with this situation? Well, we budgeted more FTEs, which are full-time equivalents, and for people who know what that is, we hired more police officers, and that's what we have on Clearwater Beach to take care of the situation. So I'm opposed to the 50-cent fare rate. I think what St. Pete Beach should be doing is probably, because they're getting more people coming in to St. Pete Beach, to go ahead and beef up their police, the sheriff's department, which they use. The job of law enforcement is to enforce laws, and the job of public transit is to move people with equality for all people. So I think we need to have more time to deliberate on the raise on November 1st. But I am opposed to the 50-cent fare now because I think it unequally targets certain people. I think they're going to be, even if we put the 50 cents in place, they're going to find a way to get to St. Pete Beach right now. And I know that on the planning committee, we talked about this. We're at the hottest time of the year, and somebody said, well, they're going to the beach to cool off and at night to sleep there because it's cool. Well, we're going to have hot weather for about another month, and then they're probably going to see this thing subside. So I think we need to talk more about how we're going to move forward. You know, PSTA right now is in a budget crunch, and, you know, we're trying to find ways to not cut service. Our job is to provide more service to people and give premium service, which that's what the Sunrunner is. And certainly don't want to, you know, cut that service right now by raising a fare. I think we may be ready November 1st, but I'd like to have more talk about it with the rest of the board as to how we're going to proceed forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have a couple of requests to speak for the second time, but we do have some board members who have not spoken once, and so I'm going to change the order just a little bit to make sure everyone has a chance to speak once before we go to the second round. Next is Commissioner Peters.
Thank you, and I agree with a lot of what's been said, and I actually agree with Mr. Schulman on his comments. I do believe that we need to do a full fare. I don't think we should do less than a full fare. I do think we can implement it quicker than November, but I do think that we need to have time to do it. You know, I don't know if you could do it in 30 days or if November 1st is the way to go. I understand why we went fare-free in the beginning. I didn't support extending it. I thought 6 months was enough, but we agreed on the 1 year. So, you know, I'm with you on that. I do want to clarify something, and Mr. Schulman started to, but it gets brought up a lot that St. Pete Beach does not pay ad valorem taxes to PSTA, which is true. But St. Pete Beach does contract with PSTA, so they're not getting free stuff from PSTA. They're paying for it. And I just, you know, I think when comments are made like that, you know, that it needs to be clarified as to what is correct. And I do believe St. Pete Beach has even asked for one route to be eliminated because they don't want so many buses on their streets. So one bus route, I think was, Brad, I don't know which one it was, Central Avenue, that turns around on 75th, but, you know, so they were looking to get less buses. They opted out of being on PSTA's millage rate years ago because they didn't want buses in their city. Then they did contract for the trolley because they felt that was important for all the beach communities. But if you recall, when Sunrunner was coming in, St. Pete Beach and South Pasadena both wrote letters saying that they did not want Sunrunner in their cities. They didn't want it. So you have residents here that didn't want it, but PSTA put it in there anyways. So they preempted the local government and put it in there anyways. Now, that's a whole different subject, but I just wanted to put that out and clarify it. So, you know, when the citizens get upset, they've got some ample reasons why they're upset. So what I do believe on this issue is the free fare exasperated what happened on St. Pete Beach. I think homelessness happens in transit. It's been brought up in the presentation. Homeless issues kind of surround transit. And Treasure Island doesn't have a free route that goes to Treasure Island, but they have a homeless problem, and it's surrounded around the bus stations. And so, or the bus stops. So I don't think, you know, I think no matter what, you're going to have homeless issues surrounding with transportation. I just think St. Pete Beach got exasperated by the free fare. I don't think it's going to go away, but I think it got exasperated. I think if there's a full fare, I think many people are going to figure out and they're going to know, because they were riding buses before. They're going to know how to get a bus pass if they want to get a bus pass. And if that population thinks that that's fertile ground for them to better panhandle or sleep on the beach or whatever it is that they want to do, they're going to find ways, because they've already know how to get bus passes. So I don't, and there's numerous opportunities to get bus passes. So, you know, unfortunately, I think for St. Pete Beach, now there are no resources on St. Pete Beach for people that are homeless. There's plenty of resources on in St. Petersburg for people that are homeless. Thus the reason they show back up in the morning, because that's where the resources are. So, you know, I think St. Pete Beach is going to have to do what Treasure Island is having to do, and many other communities that are having to do with dealing with the homelessness. And it's difficult, but I think when we institute the full fare, I think that some of those riders may go to other beaches that they were going to, or they may go to different routes or different places. I don't know if putting the fare in at this point is gonna turn around St. Pete Beach's issue, now that it's become a location that has become desirable. So, you know, I support the full fare. I think that the cost, you know, St. Petersburg wants to add $200,000 to assist us in paying for that and affording it, that's different, but I would not want to go less than the full fare. I think Mr. Schulman was correct on keeping data consistent. And so, you know, I have a lot of thoughts on homelessness, and I got to say, the sheriff has done above and beyond on what it takes to work with the homeless population. He has done above and beyond on prevention, to keep preventing people to get homeless. He's instituted intense case management for people that are at risk for becoming homeless. And so he has gone above and beyond to address this population and the complexities that go with it. And so, sure, we've brought lots of people to the table on homelessness. Actually, it's been probably over a decade since we've done a big thing where we brought people from all over around the table to deal with homelessness. The chronic homeless is a very different population. It's difficult to work with them, but I think maybe it's time that leaders in the community come back together to address it. But, if we're looking for, I don't know if we're ready for a motion, but, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to make that motion, but I definitely think we should go to a full fare. I would like to see it going in October. I think 30 days is enough to advertise it. I don't know that I would have consensus on this board for a 30-day, but I definitely think that the full fare is the way to go.
Second.
Wait, was that, it was not, it wasn't a motion.
So, you know what, I'll go with I think the consensus is in November. So I'd like to do it in 30 days, but I think the consensus is to do it in November, so a full fare in November. And that gives staff ample time. And I think it gives staff ample time to look at the security, how we put security on the bus, if that's the appropriate way to do it, or if we should be privatizing that, or if we should be doing training, or what we should be doing. I think it's a comprehensive thing that has to come together, so I think November is an appropriate timeline.
Right. Thank you. And just to clarify with our attorney, what's being proposed and so if that motion is made, does it even need to be made because it's not a change, it's something we already have in place? The suggestion is, sounds like it's really about keeping our current plan in place. What would you prefer?
Right, Chair. If the pleasure of the board is to continue with the previous decision to implement full fares as of November 1st, you don't need to take any action today.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
But we would
Commissioner-
need consensus, wouldn't we, Mr. Attorney?
Well,
If there wasn't, there would be a different motion made.
Right,
So
there-
that would be
Your
how-
rules provide that you're not to take motions to take no action, so you, based upon your discussion, if the consensus is to continue with the previous decision, then you don't need to take them. There's no appropriate motion to make today, since you cannot take a motion to take no action.
Commissioner Peters, were you finished, or did you have any
No,
further?
I'm finished, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Saraki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a couple comments. First of all, I just want to thank all the speakers that came out today. I believe that public comment is the backbone to our communities, and I really do appreciate all your comments. I took a little poll of keeping track of the public comments, and I have 9 who said, please stop the free fares. I have 3 who said, keep the fares, and I had 1 that was neutral. That is really something that I take to heart. I also want to thank the union for your due diligence and what you've been doing and getting involved as far as keeping us updated. That's important. Special thank you to the sheriff. In 2015, when I took the Sheriff's Academy class, Sheriff Gualtieri got me in as the last seat. I had no idea how important our sheriff's department is to our community. I want to thank you for your presentation today. Your pictures shown what is going on in our community, which is kind of disturbing to me. But all I can say is that I support fares as soon as possible. I think we need to charge fares so that our PSTA, during our budget crisis that we're talking about, we can start implementing fares and get income coming in to PSTA. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you. I will make a couple of comments. I've got a couple of questions, and then we'll go to our second round. I did have a question for Sheriff Galtieri, if you don't mind, sir. Commissioner Fig Sanders mentioned earlier that when we talk about the number of infractions, the number of violations, that it wasn't clear if there was duplication. So do you actually have like the number of individual violators, or are you saying that it's the same folks? I mean, is it 3,000? Is it 300? Is it 30?
It's largely deduplicated, and the same thing with Commissioner Schulman. I don't play that, okay? That's playing games. I don't play games. Is that I give you the specific numbers. So you're right, is sometimes people can express things in statistical form. It can be statistically invalid. So when I was talking about the 535% increase, what I was talking about was the calls for service. And what I said is that the increase at the Dolphin Village Shopping Center was up by 535%. In the same period of 2022 is that there were 20 calls, and the same period of 2023, 127 calls. So that is substantial. Okay, that's same thing when I expressed the other one about the increase in the 384%. Is that those numbers? So we're all clear on that. Is that that went from 31 to 150. And the other one was a 7-Eleven at 70%. That went from 20 to 34. So these are real numbers, and the same thing is that what we're finding out there is when we're arresting these people and we're dealing with them, is that they go to jail. They're usually not coming back. There may be a couple in there, but it's largely deduplicated. And so what I said before and what's happened is the word spreads. And as the word spreads, you get more of them that are coming. So no, it's not a situation like this. This isn't, I wouldn't be standing here. If this was like 2 or 3 people that just kept coming back and causing problems, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't do that. That's not how I, as they say, that's not how I roll. So
Right.
I don't do it that way, okay? No pun intended, but.
All right, thank you. And so this is something that doesn't just happen in St. Pete Beach. It's, you know, there are examples from Clearwater, of course, St. Petersburg, you know, deals with this challenge. And what I'm looking at is not specifically people who are unhoused. I'm looking at people who are knowingly violating the law. That's what I've got a problem with. And I don't care what city it's in. The answer is law enforcement. The second answer is collaboration and being proactive and keeping this from happening in the first place. And I think that's what we're trying to get to today. When I was first brought into the conversations about the increase in activity on St. Pete Beach, I suggested that perhaps the sheriff's office and St. Pete Police, I know that the sheriff and Chief Holloway have an excellent relationship. Maybe if they and PSTA and also the partners like Directions for Living and St. Petersburg's Call Team, which is social workers who look for ways that they can help people, really addressing the root of the problem. I'm still looking for that, because I don't think we need to take a sledgehammer to something that could be fixed with a scalpel. And if we really are concerned about the homeless, about those who are struggling with mental illness and those who just simply have bad intentions, that is where we need to be focusing our energy and our resources. The free fares, I don't see it changing anything because, as has been noted, we have many ways for people to get a reduced or free bus pass. And I'm pretty proud that starting in November, it looks like we're going to be offering free rides for all veterans. And we're proud of that. As we heard earlier, statistics showed that it's likely that a large number of the folks that we are talking about today who don't have good intentions are veterans. They need respect too, and they need help too. I am of the mindset that all people are welcome here, but all behavior is not. When the behavior is inappropriate, when it's unlawful, it needs to be dealt with. But we know that there are issues that perhaps could be addressed in a more proactive way. I don't want us to take the approach of arresting our way out. We can lead with compassion, and we can lead by recognizing people as human beings. You just don't ever know someone's story. I don't care if they're sleeping in your laundry room, they have a story. They may not be up to any good, that needs to be handled. But I don't want to lump everyone into one category when the answers are very, very complex. The city of St. Petersburg has, or the mayor's office has issued the letter reminding everyone that we were working on this in our budget to keep this free because the Sunrunner has proven to be of such great benefit to its riders. With a growing population and increased economic activity, our desire to connect people with jobs and housing and that quality of life that we're talking about today, we need to make sure that we have better, faster, more convenient ways for people to get from point A to point B, and the Sunrunner is proving that we know how to make that happen. I don't want to do a single thing to disrupt that. I want to address the real problem, and the real problem is not a bus. I want to see the sheriff's office, the police department, the mayor's office, PSTA, and all of the partners working together to figure out how to address this. The people who will take help, let's get them help. Those who don't, we deal with that too. But I don't want to punish thousands and thousands, almost 1 million riders for what a small group is doing that doesn't have good intentions or that really, really needs help. I can't support anything that institutes the fares before what we had decided before in November. I would like to keep it free beyond that, but for now, I believe that that gives us time for these collaborations, these conversations, and maybe a real game plan that works for everybody can be put together. But we need time. That's why I was mad when I found out we were going to make a knee-jerk reaction. And I said, no, I don't want that. We need time. We need to have conversations. It's a complex problem. It's not going to be solved overnight. So what I want to happen is, for now, we keep it to where we'll start charging in November. We've got time to change on that. City's ready for helping with funding if that's necessary. But I'm not going to support that if no one gives us a chance to approach this in a more proactive and compassionate way. That's where I'm at right now. And we'll go to Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're not going to solve homelessness here today, nor is it the job of this board to do that. Actions this board has taken has created issues for the city of St. Pete Beach. And I think we have to make a decision here today, and it's incumbent upon us to do what we can to try to unring that bell. To let this go for another 60-plus days is not fair to the residents of St. Pete Beach. It's not fair to the business owners down there. It's not fair to the tourists, and it's certainly not fair to the sheriff, who has much bigger fish to fry than this. So with that said, I am making a motion that we start charging the full fare of $2.25 on the Sunrunner September 15th. It was said earlier.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and, sir, did you have any
Yeah, just it
further
was said
comments?
earlier that it was going to take 3 weeks to reprogram the system. I don't know why it takes that long to reprogram the system, but that gives you the time to do it. So that's all. 15th, right.
Commissioner Latvala?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Scott just made a motion that I was about to make. I'll just add that PSTA is in a budget crunch, as we know, and unfortunately, some routes may be eliminated as a result of that in upcoming meetings. But the sheriff's office is also in a budget crunch. And it is not, there are other resources that he needs his budget for than to have deputies patrolling St. Pete Beach, making sure that folks are not showering naked in public and doing other activities such as that. But I support the motion that was just made. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Flowers?
I was going to make a totally different motion. There's a motion on the floor, so, and it's not an amendment to this motion, it's a totally separate motion. So I'll wait until the vote, and if it does not succeed, I'll present this proposed motion, Madam Chair.
No sneak preview?
I would like to ask this question, because Commissioner Peters piqued my interest. Brad, in order for us to be able to build the Sunrunner bus stops and whatnot, we have to get permission from that local government in order to build those edifices and whatnot. So when the Sunrunner was put in place, did the city of St. Pete Beach agree that the Sunrunner would go through, and there's written documentation to that agreement? Or did PSTA just run Sunrunner in St. Pete Beach without their permission? I just want to get clarity on that. Commissioner Peters had mentioned that.
Commissioner Peters was accurate.
Okay.
The city of St. Pete Beach did vote to oppose implementing of the Sunrunner.
Okay.
However, the Gulf Boulevard is a
FDOT road.
Florida DOT road, and there was no right of way taken by the city. So that's the only, it's my understanding, the only vote that the city of St. Pete Beach ever had.
Okay.
On it.
So even though the city of St. Pete Beach voted not to have it, it was within PSTA's ability to have the Sunrunner run through there because the road belongs to, well, it's governed under FDOT. Okay.
Yes, and in addition, there was, 10 years of planning and votes by the Ford Pinellas, by PSTA, that was the highest ridership route.
Okay. Thank you. No sneak preview on my motion, Madam Chair.
All right, I had to try. We have no further requests for discussion at this time, but we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Does anyone need to have the motion repeated? Oh, Commissioner Albritton.
As I recollect, Brad, too, the Sunrunner was going to go further down St. Pete Beach, and when the opposition took effect, then we ended up moving it to the county park there to, as a turning point. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. A number of comments were made about the different decisions that were made to respond to the requests of the city of St. Pete Beach to reduce the size of the buses, to scale back the Sunrunner so that it didn't go as far, and to make the turnaround at County Beach Park.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. That was a great question. It's good to be reminded of compromises that were made, not only with route, but the size of the buses. And, hopefully we'll have some opportunities to collaborate and solve this current challenge that we have. Any other comments? All right. If we could go ahead and open the voting machine, please. Commissioners, please enter your votes. And Commissioners Albritton, do we still have Robinson on? Commissioner Albritton, could you do a voice vote, please?
I vote no.
Commissioner Albritton votes no. And do we have Robinson on?
I think so.
I think he had to go. All right, thank you. So Albritton is listed on there. All right, the motion fails. With Commissioner Robinson being absent. Right. All right. Commissioner Flowers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure if this one's gonna make it either. Oh, Lord. Prayer, much prayer. Okay, so this motion will be to institute fairs immediately for PSTA to meet with the sheriff or sheriff's representative, someone from the CALL program and Directions for Mental Health, as well as members of the planning committee to come up with a more thoughtful and precise long-range solution to the concerns of the unhoused, not just on St. Pete Beach, but throughout our routes. And for staff to meet with the sheriff and the city administrator for St. Pete Beach as soon as possible to determine ways in which to handle the concerns on St. Pete Beach while the implementation is occurring. I think that's as clear as I can make it. And the reason I'm saying that is because I know that we need to look at whether or not we have the resources somewhere to continue to pay the security forces that we have and to continue on with the bus monitors until we can come up with a more thoughtful, long-range plan. And trying to remove some of the financial burden from the sheriff's office.
So that is your motion?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, what was the amount of?
Sure. Sure. Commissioner Rayton, ask a question. You had a question.
Can we clarify it so it's, yeah. a little
Implement
more-
the fares immediately, number one.
Okay.
Number two, have PSTA, Brad, and his staff to set up a meeting that would include the sheriff or his representative the call program out of the city of St. Pete, whoever its representative would be, a representative from Directions for Mental Health, because they currently work with us somewhat on this, and to include the planning committee, since this will be a planning effort from PSTA, so that we could work on a more thoughtful and precise solution that could be then presented to the full board for concerns related to the unhoused, homeless, and the concerns at St. Pete Beach and other places, because it's not just St. Pete Beach where they are sleeping and doing some of the other things along the Sunrunner route. And for staff, Brad, or whomever he selects, and the sheriff and/or whomever he selects, to meet as soon as possible so that they could try to devise a plan as it relates to the immediacy of the individuals who are unhoused and presenting themselves with presenting the community with some of the issues and concerns that we were discussing today. It's gonna take a few days for the planning committee, call, Directions for Mental Health, and all of them, for all of us to come together for a meeting. So that last one is asking that for the more immediacy of a resolution, that those entities, the sheriff and the city administrator from St. Pete Beach and PSTA, work out something or talk about what they could work out immediately that would help to alleviate the sheriff from having to put out $10,000 a week, and would alleviate PSTA from having to put out whatever the dollar value is, I can't remember, for us to have security out there. Like we've been doing in the last few weeks.
And how much would the fare be?
I said the regular fare.
Regular fare?
So it's, yeah, it's the regular fare. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. I just said to institute the fare, so I'm sorry.
No, no.
The regular fare, which would have been the $225.
Madam Chair.
Okay, hold on. Commissioner Oliver, I believe that you had started to speak at the same time as Commissioner Reed, and so I had planned to call on you next.
Either way,
So-
I'm just trying to get a point of clarification. Are you suggesting implementing the full fare immediately? Is that part of your motion? I understand the yada, 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 and getting
Yes,
everybody
sir.
together, but you're suggesting implementing full fare immediately?
Yes,
That's
sir.
part of your motion?
Yes, sir.
Just so I'm clear.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have a motion and a second. And we'll go to Commissioner Cox.
My question is, what does immediately mean? When is that? Tomorrow? Next week? A month? Could we clarify that?
We need it, yeah.
You guys, I'm not laughing at this issue. I'm laughing at what someone just said, noon. It's gonna be noon in 10 minutes.
High noon.
It's gonna be noon in 10 minutes. I would give it the date of September 6th.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Peters.
I've been hesitant to ask this question, but this is really a question for the sheriff. Now, you came here because you were hoping for a solution. Does this motion help you, do you feel that this motion is going to help you get to a solution?
I opened with telling you what my experience is in dealing with this population, and it goes back 15 years. And looking at this, I'm very confident that a fare will mitigate the impact that this is having. Nothing solves everything, but this is going to significantly impact it. And the full fare would significantly impact this in a positive way. What I came in here looking for, I'm willing to continue to spend the $10,000 a week for a limited period of time, to be collaborative, to be a team player, and to really provide a resolution to this. Waiting until November 1st isn't an answer, and my question for you all is where do I send the bill? for the $10,000 a week. I'll send the invoice to Mr. Miller. But what I was looking for is, because somebody's got to pay for this. So what I was looking for, a reasonable solution to me, everything that Commissioner Flowers said, make it October 1st, splits the baby, and we move on, and I'll absorb it until October 1st. Let's get this done, make it October 1st, let's be collaborative, try and be problem-solving, and let's give this a shot. That's what I was looking for coming in here. I wasn't looking for tomorrow, I wasn't looking for noon. I was looking for collaboration, a good faith effort at problem solving and resolving this. Make it October 1st, let's all work together, and let's get it done. That's what I was looking
So
for.
would you consider that amendment?
I'll amend my motion for the date of October 1st as long as the other pieces stay in there, because I want to make
Perfect.
sure that we are working, all of us are working towards a long-term solution.
I like it.
Not just implementing a fair and thinking that that's going to be the solution.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Peters, are you?
I'm done, thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go next to Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I originally was going to be in opposition of the noon or immediate start time. And part of me really wants to keep the November 1st deadline, but I also understand and I hear and appreciate what the sheriff is saying, and I appreciate the willingness to be a collaborative partner in this regard. So even though my heart and the data-driven reason why we selected November 1st wants to keep November 1st, I think it is appropriate at this time, given parties working together, to move it to October 1st. And I agree with everything else that Commissioner Flowers said. So I would be in support of the current motion on the table. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Fig Sanders.
Thank you. Yeah, I was definitely one of the November 1st dates, and I'm still kind of there. Sheriff, quick question. So the level of enforcement that you have now constitutes the 10,000 a week? Is that what we're spending?
Yes.
So is that something that you feel is going to be consistent if we start implementing a fair earlier? So if we go October 1st, you're not going to have to spend a dime after October 1st.
So, right, that's what I'm going to do is that the day that the fair goes into effect is we're going to stop the details, and we're going to stop it. And then we'll be able to see if this solution is a solution. And so that's when we're going to stop the bleeding, which is, and as Commissioner Libala said, some others, this is unbudgeted funds. So we're having to, absorb this, and, for everybody, money's tight. But you have to solve problems. You have to respond to the legitimate as community concern. This is a legitimate problem. And that's what we do, and that's what we're all charged with, is public safety is paramount, quality of life is paramount, and listening to the citizens. So we got it. So I'm going to figure it out. And all I'm asking for is that to be collaborative, be a partnership. Don't dump it all on me for the next 60-plus days. Let's split the baby. I'll do my part and suck it up and get it done. And then at that mark, when you all decide, and if you can agree to October 1st, then I'm going to stop the detail. We'll stop having to expend those funds, and we'll see if this works. If it works, I really think it will, and I'm being very thoughtful and deliberative and giving you 15 years of experience of dealing with this population, I think it's going to mitigate it to the point that we can live with it and deal with it effectively with existing staffing. If it doesn't, then we'll go to the drawing board. In the meantime, then we'll all be having discussions and get contingency plans and try and figure this out to see where we can mitigate the impact. It's all about reasonableness to me, being collaborative. There is no perfect. Let's just get to the best possible place we can. That's where I am on it.
Thank you, and I'm glad you said that. There is no reasonable, and I think my hesitation with that is to make sure that we get all the key players in line by October 1st, that we effectively and efficiently have the opportunity to have those conversations before it is actually put into effect by October 1st. I'm still trying to get away from a knee-jerk reaction of implementing a date sooner than what we had already talked about. I do know that staff has actually took the time to find out what that timeline looks like, and I am confident that they took not only your finances into consideration, but the finances of PSTA as well. So my I'm okay with early, but I'm not okay with not having a plan. You know, we're mentioning collaborating with all these other organizations without these other organizations not being here, or being able to give input to what their role is, because they have staffing issues too. You know, they have other needs that they're trying to address as well. And I think I want us to partner. I want us to be collaborative. I want all of us to make sure that we're not unintentionally leaving someone from the table. Because your services are appreciated, but then so are the services of all the different organizations that we're looking to help us come to a solution. And that's the only piece that I am struggling with, is to make sure that by us moving the date, that we're not adding unintended consequences to other organizations. I know it's easy for us to say no personally, but we can't speak, just like they can't speak for you, we can't speak for them. And so I just want to make sure that those that are important to the process of success, of the potential success on this, actually has the opportunity to do so. So if we go with the October 1st date, my only concern would be how soon will we be able to corral everyone up? How soon will we be able to get it done, and what will be the financial impact if we're going to go through budget cuts? And I agree with the commissioner earlier, we're talking about discontinuing routes. Are we going to be able to handle this? You know, what does that dollar amount look like? I guess I'm just one of those that, you know, you make quick decisions, and then we take time and effort and additional unplanned, unbudgeted dollars in retrospect to try to fix it. So I just want to make sure that the intentions are clear, all the people that are sitting at the table will be able to, and it won't be an impact on their budget as well. You know, because a lot of the people that we talked about, like Direction of Living and HLA, they are constantly trying to find funding to service their load now and what it is that they currently have. How is this going to impact them with their level of expertise and the clients that they serve, without them being here to say, yeah, we think we can get it done, you know, within 30 days.
What's been going on now is exactly what you're talking about. Everybody's already been talking, I've been talking to Mr. Miller, we've been talking to St. Pete Beach, we've been talking to all these people, all these entities. I've had, you know, discussions with Mayor Welch a lot, with Chief Holloway. So, you know, really, I hear you, but you just don't know what has already been happening. So I'm just trying to put you at ease with it, is I really don't see any of that. And this is no different than what we all have been doing all along.
Okay. And you're right. Yeah, you're right. I don't know what has all been happening.
Yeah, there's been a lot of
asking the
discussion over the last month plus on this, and people trying to come up with solutions. If there was, and I can't tell you how many times, I've said this to Mr. Miller, I've said it to a lot of different people, is that I get the dilemma with this. But there is no other answer to try to see if this accomplishes what we absolutely have to accomplish. If there was some other way, a lot of smart people here, we would have come up with it. We've just got to try this. And what it comes down to, you know, again, and why it's imperative, I believe, to do it as early as possible in a reasonable way. And it's, in all due respect, is that I don't think it's knee-jerk given from, again, we've been at this for over a month now with intensity. Today is the 23rd of August. We're giving it till October 1st. Plenty of time for implementation and to let everybody know. That's, to me, not knee-jerk, that's my view. But I think we can all work together. I don't see how it negatively impacts or affects any other organization, that they can't work against that deadline, because it's what we're already doing anyway.
And thank you, I appreciate that. And the knee-jerk reaction comes from, again, us just at the last minute being told something was going into effect, which seems as though a very unreasonable reactionary response to a conversation that you say that's been going on for a very long time. If it had been going on that such a long time, we wouldn't have found out just that quickly and just that Oh, this is gonna start next week. So that kind of contradicts the continuing conversation. But again, I'm a team player. I'm looking at coming to a resolve on this, but I still just want to make sure that I'm on record stating that the other organizations that we are depending on, that we're going to continue to also support them in other ways to help address what it is that we're considering all of a sudden now a problem. Because they're struggling and fighting for dollars as well. You know, we have resources out there that they can't get access to, and things that we're wanting to, I'm gonna speak for Deborah, I can't speak for we. But what I'm wanting to make sure that whatever we implement with this process does not unintentionally put any other organization in a bind. I hear you, Sheriff, I really honestly do, I hear you. But we're asking them to participate. And if they do not agree to participate because they were not included in the initial conversation, I wish someone from Direction from Living was here. I've heard what HLA said, I heard what those other organizations said, and I heard what other commissioners up here said in regards to having time. So if October 1st is the will of the body, Mr. Miller, and those involved are prayerful that you get those organizations on ASAP and whatever resources and sources they need to accommodate our request, because they're already struggling. They're struggling just like we are, and unfortunately their budgets aren't as large as ours, that we get them on board to get it done. Thank you, Cheryl.
You're not doing anything different. You've got people here that are now over here. And the challenge of giving them and providing the services to them and everything that it takes, it's everybody's already doing the same thing. And I'll go back to it, is that right down the road, we've got 250 open beds. We've got plenty of services. These people, whether it's us or Directions or whoever it is, that's the challenge we always have had with this population. And case management is the challenge, and master case management and trying to get them to a better place. We don't need more of it. Some of these people we're just never going to get to. And you know, that's where we have to come in and deal with it. So I hear you. I also want to make sure the record's clear so that nobody, because of the way you said it, okay, is that I want to make sure, and I'm not trying to cause any problems for anybody, but the fact that you all are new to this, make sure you understand, that's not on me, okay? So at least anybody think that's not on me, okay? Because we've been having this discussion for a while now. So yes, you all are new to this discussion, but this is something that's been going for a while.
Yeah, and we don't doubt that, Sheriff. We know
Okay.
you've been out there doing it
Just
for a long time.
making sure.
We know, and again, like I said, the implication of the last minute notice of the 50 cent kind of caught quite a few of us off guard.
Right, and I didn't support that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that ship sailed. So, let's, but to your point is, I'm confident that that is the best option, and it's the best option at having something reasonable that'll work. That's where I am, so.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Oh, you guys, should I order lunch?
Yeah, I'll be brief.
All right, Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of quick questions. This would be for the, getting the fair media, the cards out to the vendors. In our planning committee, that I spoke to Al Burns about this, and he said that he anticipated they'd be ready in October. Al is not here.
He's right now.
Where?
The highly motivated purchasing director is right there.
How come I'm not?
I'm
Oh,
sorry,
there he
I
is.
pointed
Hey.
you out.
Al, could you address that? Is there any possibility to accelerate that? And this is just so those that are either unbanked or underbanked, don't have a credit card, don't have a debit card, don't have, can go out and buy one at CVS or wherever.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Al Burns, Procurement Director and Budget Director. My answer that I would give you is that we could go to the vendor and let them know that the decision that the board has made, and encourage them and work with the vendor to see if we can get the cards here in a timely manner. If Abhishek has anything to add.
Good afternoon again. Abhishek Dayal, Director of Project Management. So again, we were working towards the November 1st timeline with our vendors, and that's pretty much what we provided to them. But as Al mentioned, we will go back to them and see what kind of solutions they can come up with and see if we can meet the October 1st deadline.
I think it's a very important component of us accomplishing this. I'm sorry, but I have voice problems. No, it's just like cancer. And to Mrs. Fox Whitney, and then now that would also in turn have your acceleration of the training of and so on and so forth. And how could that be accommodated?
Yes, of course. As was mentioned, we have a robust fair education campaign that we plan to kick off on September 1st to help with the communication of the November 1st fair implementation, along with all of the communication and marketing that we've already done that says November 1st. So we would have to obviously change the date on the materials and make sure that we have a more robust campaign to let them know that the date is actually changing and make sure our outreach team is out communicating that to the public. Of course, we will, like I said at the beginning of my presentation, accommodate whatever the board votes on today. Will it be as much time as we would like to make sure that we get the word out to everyone on how to pay fares to cause as little confusion as possible? It won't provide that much time, but we'll do the best that we can, of course.
Okay, thank you, Whitney. And one other thing is the proposal by the city of St. Pete, which I absolutely support. Will this have an effect on that? It will.
I don't know. We'll have to ask them.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Well, again, I support their proposal. And, all right. That's all I have.
Right. Thank you. Commissioner Oliver.
Yeah, on that same point, could we pull up the staff presentation where they talked about options and decisions? Because I was going to ask about the St. Pete proposal. If the St. Pete proposal, as I've read it by Mayor Welch, is true, and they partially subsidize the Sunrunner, there would be no fares for the Sunrunner. No fares for the Sunrunner. So we would be right back in the position of charging no fares for the Sunrunner. And that's problematic to me, because I think there needs to be a fare on the Sunrunner. And so when if I don't know if we can pull it up, but if this motion is to charge regular fares October 1, when are we going to discuss whether or not we're going to have the proposal by the mayor, which essentially would bring fares back down to zero? And so that's a question, I guess, to Brad or the chair. If we vote on the motion by Commissioner Flowers, my assumption is that we're moving to full fares October 1, and we're moving to full fares, not that we're going to go back to zero with some sort of buy-down, creative buy-down. So let's be clear about that, because, Vince, I think what you're saying is you're supporting that memo from the mayor, which would essentially make all fares free again, and then we're right back to the same deliberation, and that's problematic. So do we need to clarify that at this meeting? It seems to me we do, because otherwise the staff, what's the public relations going to say? Well, it's going to be full fare, except maybe it's not. I mean, we can't do that. So I would support Commissioner Flowers' motion, but with the fact that there's going to be full fares. And if there's going to be a reduction or zero fares, the board is going to have to decide that, and I think they're going to have to decide it today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Brad?
Thank you, Commissioner Oliver. You're exactly right. As I stated at the beginning of the meeting, whatever the board's decision today, if Commissioner Flowers' motion passes, we will implement full fares on the Sunrunner. That means $2.25 at every station on October 1st. I don't know what day of the week that is, but on October 1st. I read the mayor's letter just like you can read it. It does have part of it that states that if the board decides to implement the fare, then maybe their offer is not valid. So that's why I don't know the answer. But obviously, no matter what the city of St. Petersburg would end up voting on would have to come back to the PSTA board. I mean, right? So October 1st, if the motion passes, October 1st, the fares would go in, and then whatever the city ultimately decides to do, then would come back to the board at a later date.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Gao.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First time speaking today, I'll try and be brief.
Yes,
but
I just
I'm
realized that.
data-driven, but I speak emotionally, so I apologize in advance. If we were to introduce this fare, do we have any data or expectation on the number of riders that will drop off, whether they're homeless or not, just ridership in general? Right now, we're anticipating 100,000 a month in free riders. Do we know what that number looks like if we institute the fee?
For budgeting purposes and for calculating the fares, we've assumed a 20% drop in ridership with instituting the fares.
Okay.
Obviously, we will be monitoring that and see that is true.
Okay. Chair, I do ask you to reel me in if I go down a rabbit hole, so I apologize for this. There are two decisions this board has made this year that are really haunting me at this point. One of them was free rides on Sunrunner, and the other one was the veterans, free rides for the veterans. And while staff has been completely clear on the revenue that we would lose instituting those programs, myself personally, and I think the rest of the board really didn't tie it back to the number of routes or riderships that would be impacted. And now here we are at a budget cycle where we're having to talk about reducing our routes and riders at the same time that we've talked about giving free rides to people. And I believe that public transit has true positive economic value throughout the entire community. And for us to be in a position of having to cut a route or make decisions on losing riders is not a position that PSTA should ever, 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 ever be in. If we're not expanding routes, if we're not expanding riders, then we're not doing it right. And so while this is a serious, true problem for St. Pete Beach, it's not just a St. Pete Beach problem, it's not just a PSTA problem. It's something that we need to really look at. The irony of the veterans program is if we're also have to, in supporting that, have to cut routes, we could possibly be cutting routes that those same veterans would be taking. The irony in that, we give you a free ride, but sorry, we cut your route. Just does not make good business sense. When it comes to the value of PSTA, again, true positive economic value that I think isn't designed just to focus on the fare when I get on the bus. That 100,000 riders a month that are currently riding, how many of those are homeless? How many are actually out in our communities spending money? Primarily, people ride public transit for two reasons. Or actually, they leave their home, whether it's public transit or not. People in the county leave their homes for two reasons. They're either going to make money or they're going to spend money. And if we can be a county that really helps people get wherever they're going, that just makes our county healthy or wealthier. And so it should be a matter of public transit should be in the focus of getting people wherever they want to go. So I am in support of this motion. I just want to be, whatever decision public PSTA makes, I'm going to beat this drum until I'm off this board. It's got to tie back to routes and riders. routes and riders. What is the physical impact of this corporation? What is the impact to the number of riders on this? So we always need to be cognizant of that 20% drop. How many of those are adding economic value? And are we throwing the baby out with the bathwater when we make decisions? That's not acknowledging, I'm not trying to belittle the problem that has brought us to today, but I really want to address the problem and not acknowledge the economic impact of PSTA. We are the best public transit system in the nation, and we deserve that recognition. But that doesn't mean that we do everything correctly. So thank you, Chair, for letting me speak.
All right. Commissioner Flowers.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to clarify something. On page 2 of the mayor's letter to us, he just simply says that he is not willing to support anything where there is inequity in the way in which we charge for fares. Essentially, speaking to the initial recommendation, which was the 50 cent at a certain location or what have you. So he didn't say that this letter, I'm not getting that he would not support something where if you're implementing a fare, it's the fare across the board. He's saying he's not supporting something that implements a fare only for this, which was the conversation about the 50 cent fare. So that's, if you look at paragraph 2 and paragraph 3 on page 2, he's very clear in that. I did reach out to him yesterday because I don't like speaking on behalf of someone when they're not present and just trying to glean from what they wrote. I did ask if he thought he would be able to come today, or if maybe someone from his office, from his leadership team, and unfortunately the timing didn't work out. But what I am gleaning from here is not that he does not support the implementation of a fare. He's just saying the fare needs to, if you're going to implement one, it needs to be for everybody across the board, not just to try to deter a certain group of persons from being able to traverse down to the beach. And I just want to clarify one thing, and Councilmember Fix Sanders, thanks for your comments. They were very well placed. When I'm asking for these groups to come together, it is to come together and talk about what solutions could we potentially come up with. Not that we're pulling resources or having them to provide something, just we're here together in a room, because it appears as though there have been conversations like in pockets, but not everybody coming together where we can all hear what each other is saying at the table. So I'm getting like a piece from this, a piece from that, and a piece from here. I want us all to be together to say, here's what the problem is. What are your suggestions? What are your suggestions? What are your suggestions? And then see what we could come up with out of that. So that's why I was asking that we all come together. And maybe if we had all, and I agree with you because I said that as well, but maybe if we had all done that before, then we would have a different conversation today. We'd be maybe talking more about the solution. So I just want us to all be in one room so that we're all talking, because I've seen us work real well together when we can do that. We come up with a solution because we're all at the same table and we're all doing what we can, and it comes up to be a really good solution. So I just wanted to,
All right.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I was going to go with Commissioner Scott. Did you have something immediate to this?
Yes,
Yeah.
we're gonna start losing board members, so we may wanna.
Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah. No, not losing the board members, but picking up the pace a bit. Yeah. To be clear, Commissioner Albritton.
Yes, thanks. I'll support this motion, and I guess my question to Sheriff Corteri, will you be able to get a report to us by November 1st as to the success or the failure of this motion?
Yes. We're keeping data all the time, so I'm happy to keep it from now. We'll keep the data from now until then, and then look at it from October 1 to November 1, and then give you the same data for that same 30-day period. So I'm happy to do that.
So perhaps we could take a look at the data that came back and see if it really works, and then figure out what we're going to do going forward from November 1st. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think if this motion had been made with keeping the November 1st date for charging rates, I would be supportive of it. But making this change earlier will deprive us of having that one full year of data that we had, most of us had agreed was important to have. I don't really see where there's a big difference between October 1st and November 1st in terms of coming up with some solutions, but it does really matter with the schedule that we had, what we'd agreed before, and the need to be able to look at a full year of ridership and other elements. We don't have all of the players in the room to make the commitment for the second part of the motion. And so, and there's no specific accountability. So we're saying that this is what we'd like to have happen, but it can be completely ignored. Just run out the clock, fairs start in October, nothing gets solved. Not really, because we know the fairs aren't going to change this. St. Petersburg has put this money into the budget to help to sponsor fairs starting in November. And, that was something that I had requested early this year when we started the budget process. Council Vice Chair Fig Sanders was supportive of it as well, and the mayor was on board. And this was something we really wanted to do because we could, help with at no cost to PSTA. It doesn't take away, it doesn't force us to choose what to cut in order to keep this free because the city was going to sponsor it. It's that important for our residents, for our economic development, for transit-oriented development, and for helping primarily low-income families get to work, school, pay the bills. I don't see how it would be so wrong to just stay with our schedule, start in November, and if during the month of September, these groups get together and say, hey, we've got a game plan, can you start charging in October? Then I would say yes. But we're just handing it to them without any kind of accountability. We are not going to get the kinds of results with these different organizations that we want. Not in that short amount of time, and I don't think to anyone's satisfaction. So, we've kind of put a solution out here, but I don't think it all adds up, and it's just because of the October one versus November one, it's just something that I can't support. I wanted to finish out this year, and I think that's fair to everyone involved, including those who need the time to get together and come up with real solutions. So I just want to explain where I'm at with this. I wish we had some accountability, a carrot, some incentive in place to make sure that this happens, but I don't have the confidence that this is going to happen the way a lot of folks think it's going to. Having said that, there's no further request for discussion. Albritton's good. So we have a motion and a second. Anyone need it to be restated? There was a lot of yada yada in there, but I think we've clarified it enough. Can we open the machine for voting, please? Commissioners, please enter your votes. Albritton, could you please give us your voice vote? Commissioner Albritton, your vote, please.
Yes.
All right, thank you, sir. The motion passes with Commissioner Robinson being absent. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Again, thanks to Sheriff Peltier, Mr. Ray, and everyone who attended today. to be part of this important discussion. I look forward to seeing how it moves forward, just like we're going to in this meeting, because guess what? We've still got a couple more things that we need to take up. Let's do it fast, everyone. Believe it or not, it's time for public comment. And we do have one card for our regular public comment. Folks, if you're exiting, if you could do so quietly, I really appreciate it. Mark Strickland had filled out a green card earlier today to speak on a general topic, and if he is still here, if he could please approach the podium. Sir?
I can speak to what Mark Strickland was here for. Dr. Mark Strickland is the provost of the Seminole campus, and he was here to speak about the potential elimination of Route 58, obviously opposed. I hope he can come back to the first budget.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thanks for filling that in, and perhaps he could be reminded that another option would be to email, and I'd love to hear from him.
And I did, I told him that it was going to be after.
All right, did we have any other requests for public comment? All right, thank you. We'll close public comment. We have a consent agenda before us.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second. Schulman made the motion and he seconded. Mayor seconded. He beat me to the.
Schulman, it's Schulman Saraki.
You got it.
Any discussion on this item? We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All right, seeing none, could we open the machine for voting, please? Commissioners, please enter your votes. Commissioner Albritton, how do you vote on the consent agenda?
Yes.
Commissioner Albritton votes yes. Is Mark here?
Correct.
All right, motion carries. Next, we'll go to our committee updates. The Transit Riders Advisory Committee with Mark O'Hara.
Hi, I'm on Zoom.
Hi, thanks for hanging in there with us, Mark.
Oh, no problem. Good afternoon, Chair Driscoll, Mr. Miller, and esteemed board members. On behalf of the Transit Riders Advisory Committee, I would like to congratulate PSTA on being awarded as the APTA Mid-Level Transit System of the Year. The TRAC Committee met via Zoom on Tuesday, August 15th. The committee enjoyed a presentation from Anthony Close, the founder of St. Pete Rising, who updated us on current proposals and recommendations for improving transit-oriented development along the Sunrunner line in St. Petersburg. His presentation also featured findings from the Sunrunner Rising study done by PSTA and the city of St. Petersburg. Given the unprecedented success of the Sunrunner line, the prospects for robust economic development along the line are quite exciting. As Director Fox stated earlier, we are hoping to bring a similar presentation to the board. Additionally, PSTA Director of Planning and Sustainability, Heather Sobush, gave us a presentation detailing the proposed service cut options that will be presented to the public and the board in the month of September. She walked us through the various scenarios that would help the agency maintain a balanced operating budget. As I mentioned last month, the TRAC would like to urge the Board of Directors to please do all that you can to keep the service cuts as minimal as possible. Some of the concerns raised by members of TRAC are as follows: maintaining service to the growing Carillon area and Route 58, keeping the Central Avenue trolley, and not ending service at 10 p.m. Our next meeting will be in person on the second floor auditorium on September 19th, 2023 at 4 p.m. As always, board members are welcome to attend. Thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions from the board? All right, appreciate you joining us. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Next is the Forward Pinellas update. The Forward Pinellas Board had a special meeting on August 2nd to take action on the apportionment plan. The hot topics just keep on coming. And the board approved the apportionment plan, which increases the board of Forward Pinellas from 13 members to 19 members. Subject to approval by the governor, the new board composition would be 4 seats for the county commission, 4 seats for City of St. Petersburg. And to remind everyone, this has to be done like in proportion to population, so, yeah, with some exceptions that were made. But that's the basic, foundation of what you have to build this on. So 2 for City of Clearwater, 1 seat for each of the cities of Largo, Pinellas Park, Dunedin, and Tarpon Springs. There's shared seats with a 3-year rotation for Altamar and Safety Harbor, and then Bel Air and Bel Air Bluffs and Seminole, and then Gulfport, Kansas City, South Pasadena, and then the beach communities. PSTA also has a voting seat. The next regular Fort Pinellas board meeting will be held September 13th, 2023. That's all I have for that one. Next, we'll go to reports, correspondence, future meeting subjects,
It's all in your packet.
and it's
Take a look.
all Brad. Do you have anything specific you need to point out to us, or since it's in our packet, could we, just take a look on our own?
I think you could take a look on your own.
All right, excellent, thank you. Do we have any other business to discuss? Commissioner Latvala?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will be brief because I know that we extend past our normal time. Earlier, I expressed my displeasure with the 50-cent plan, and I know several others did as well. But one thing that was brought up at this meeting that I was not aware of, and that is the security force / bus monitors that have been on Sunrunner. And so I'm curious how long that has been in effect, why that's been in effect, or what was the reason for starting that, and what kind of budget impact has that caused?
I can get you all the details exactly. Essentially, that was just started once the sheriff called me after the last board meeting. When we heard the concerns for the first time, we did have additional expenses related to monitoring Sunrunner by our private security. The unionized officials that were here today, that they're all employed. They serve as essentially extra drivers available to drive when someone is absent. And then for over a couple of years now, that they have been assigned to different locations in the county to provide additional assistance where needed. After the last board meeting, we had them ride the Sunrunners. The private security was not riding the Sunrunner buses. They were stationed at different stations, including the beach park, as the sheriff noted. So I think the cost of that was something around $10,000 to $13,000 a month. That obviously was unplanned, that we instituted. But the other riding of the buses was not any additional expenses. They were already on the clock. The plan all along for Sunrunner, and now that it will go into effect on October 1, is to have fare inspectors go on the buses, Sunrunner buses periodically, and make sure that everyone has paid a fare. That'll be different than the rest of the system where the driver does that. So we have been planning, we have in the budget to have to fund either staff or private security to go on the Sunrunner and enforce the fare that will go into effect on October 1st.
All right. Commissioner Flowers?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask Mr. Schulman, Chair of the Planning Committee, if you could take a look at our calendar and try to schedule that meeting as soon as possible. I know that Brad will probably have staff reach out to the various nonprofits that we talked about here today, but, so that we could kind of get that on the calendar, and maybe that would be the only item that we discuss, so that we could take full benefit of the time that we're together to discuss the situation regarding the Sunrunner.
Okay, are you talking about prior to the regularly scheduled planning committee meeting?
Yes, please. Or if you want, if there's an appetite to change out the meeting and have our regular meeting, our planning meeting, unless there's something that is time certain and we need to, vote on like right away, to have this topic in place of that. Or if it's something time certain, we could certainly have those on the agenda, but making sure everyone knows we'll have a little longer meeting than traditional. And I'm just trying to address, and I fully heard Chair Driscoll's concerns, but that we could go ahead and get that scheduled and.
Yeah, I'm just, our next planning committee meeting is on the 13th. And so I'm not sure we'd be able to get all those folks in play, by that time. But certainly if we can,
Yeah.
that can.
Yeah, I think we will, only because of the phone calls that's been coming, but yeah, I just wanted to make that plea request.
Noted, thank you.
You're
Great.
welcome.
Thank you. All right, any board member have any, does any board member have any comments, general comments? I do. It is gratitude for all of you for conducting our business as the Board of PSTA in a way that has been professional, empathetic, and truly with the people's best interests in mind. And, not everything went exactly the way I wanted it to, but what's more important is that it was fair, and that makes me very proud. So thank you all. I'm very proud to serve with you all. All right. Seeing that there's no other request to speak, our next meeting is September 13th, 2023, which is our first budget and millage public hearing, and then on September 27th, second public hearing and regular meeting. Both are at 6 p.m. Don't show up at 9, 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thanks.
Good job.
Thank you.
It
Thank
wasn't
you.
long, but it was well.
Yeah. Brad, are we supposed to be?